Some people eat light bulbs. They say it's a nice light snack.
Okay. Alright, had some issues with my mic there for a second. Hi, everybody. At first, I thought I was intentionally just not talking after a few seconds, but it turns out, no, my mic just was not working there. Ah, so how's everyone doing? Holy bejeez. Cannot believe we are actually kind of at this point now. Felt like we're never gonna get here. This freaking 100 line took like 4 or 5 freaking months, man. It should almost be illegal for a game to be that long. Like, holy bejeez. Yeah, no, we're fine, but we're finally doing this now. Finally! Another entry in Mochi Storytime. I know, I can hardly believe it either. I know. Hold your applause. I can hardly believe it either. I should probably also state that it has more or less been about a year since we started this, too. So, like, you know? Kind of funny that we would start another one around this time. Yeah, like around like this time of of year. But I think that's just kind of like just how it like wound up being, really. Again, freaking 100 line, man. A bunch of months to do. Of course, making a soundtrack for this one wasn't really the easiest thing to do either. So, for a few different reasons, some of which I will go into shortly. But first and foremost, how are y'all doing? Happy Monday evening / whatever time zone you're in. It's the happy spooky month. Happy less daylight hours. Honestly, it's already dark outside, and it's only 7:30 right now, and I don't know. I gotta be realistic. I wonder if I'm like starting to feel seasonal depression too, because I just feel kind of like, just kind of been feeling out of it the past few days. Like I've been wanting to sleep a lot, and I'm just really tired. Oh, I'm kind of tired right now too, actually. Holy cow. Yeah, I just gotta. I don't know, get back into it. All right. Yes, if you can't tell, I'm trying to stall as long as I can. Is Aiden's supposed to show up? Where is he? Where is that guy? I don't know, man. Hold on a second. It's the ugly barnacle. Once there was an ugly barnacle. He was so ugly that everyone died. The end. Wow, that's shortest story I've ever heard. Minimalism. Minimalism is an art. Okay. How was my day? My day was mostly sleeping. I basically took a sick day off today because, like, for some reason I'm just so tired today. And, like, I don't know, man. But what about you, Orville? Hopefully it was more higher octane than whatever I was doing today. Honestly, maybe I should just, like, maybe it would help if I, like, actually, like, took a walk or something. Because, good gosh, I just got some blood pumping. It's got my blood pumping through my veins. Ugh. Stream, nice. Was it Minecraft, I presume? Which I do need to play again. It's been so long. I'm way overdue for playing it some more. All right. Okay. All right. So, yeah, I don't know how much longer I can stall. Sorry, Aiden, I tried. Okay, yeah, we should probably get this started here. All right. Today's story. So this is gonna be this is a new series. Well, when I say new series, I mean it's new for Mochi Storytime standards. This story is actually a rather old one. It was first published 18 years ago. So yeah, that's right. It's old enough to vote. Yeah, leave it to me to find some of these old ones, right? But no, so the reason why I chose this next one is because, like May's Crush before it has kind of had some sort of impact on me as a writer. Like, I remember when the story was basically still updating a little bit. I think I might have caught it, like, right when it was on the tail end of updates. And, I don't know, I just remember it being, like, so engaging and all that, that I was like, this was just kind of sort of always, like, on my radar to do. And there's also the fact that I was kind of, like, listening along to, like, you know, game music while reading this before Mochi Storytime was even a thing, so I guess you could say this is kind of like the, I guess you could kind of say this is Mochi Storytime before Mochi Storytime was a thing. Also, Orville, you're just saying random stuff. Okay. Alright, so... Alright. Okay, so then, I guess a few things to get out of the way before we actually start then. So, again, this story is 18 years old. So, I should probably warn all of you that, I mean, as far as writing standards go, the standards back then were significantly different. What do I mean by that? Mostly in regards to pacing. You know? Subject matters, I mean, you know, there's nothing inherently different in this subject matter that you would probably see elsewhere. But But you should definitely take it to be as a sort of product of its time nonetheless. For a few reasons. First of all, this was this person's first fanfic ever. And it's oh wow, I lost my train of thought there. Okay, sorry, I got it back. It went back into the station. So this was this person's first fanfic ever, and it does read like it at a few places. It's a little bit less obvious if you're just hearing it over audio than if you were actually reading it, but if you know me, I have a lot of pet peeves when it comes to like writing, and something as simple as like, you know, like confusing it's and it is really get on my nerves. And this is like one where it like took a freaking long time for them to like sort of get their act together on that one. So that's that's fun. Second of all, is that since this was written 18 years ago, I still can't really believe that I am saying that. This was written in a time back when so this was written back when Diamond and Pearl were a thing. Like, when they were, like, more or less the newest ones in the series. Like, Black and White were not out yet, for instance. And, like, when the story was first published, actually, even Super Smash Bros. Brawl was not out yet. That wouldn't come out until, like 6 months after the story first published, so in a way, this is very much a time capsule of what Pokemon kind of was back in the aughts, a little bit. Right down to some localization differences, too. Because as I was reading this, there were a few things that I didn't notice until, like, well, after I had already, like, read it again. Apparently, there are some character names that... Apparently, they used some Japanese versions of character names that I didn't realize that they were. I'm gonna be real, I didn't even realize that they weren't original characters. So whenever we encounter those, I'll try my best to see if I can use the localized names instead, just so it's clear who's who. But I make no guarantees. That said, I don't think we will be encountering that for a while, if anything. So. Alright, and one more thing, as well, is like a lot of other stories that I've read on this channel, this is an advanced shipping story. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? But it's not... I don't want to say it's not a shipping story, because no, it is. As much as the author tried to market it as like being like a shipping story without the shipping, I don't really consider that to be an accurate description. I feel like it's more of... I feel like it's like a shipping story where, like, like where the overarching story and the adventure are the focus. Kind of, if that makes sense. So it's not driven by the romance so much as it is the story itself. Okay. Now, I feel like I've sort of rambled on long enough. Been 25 minutes of starting this. Like this, we've been on the screen for like 25 minutes. Which means I've been stalling for like maybe about 16, 17 minutes. So let's fix that, shall we? Oh boy. Okay, there's still something that needs to set up here real quick here. Because yeah, remember the fireplace thing? Remember? Oh jeez. Political ads? Really? Like, screw those. Ah! Nice! Remember this? Remember this? Ah, it's been a while since we've had this, hasn't it? Oh boy. But okay. Now then. I'd say it's about time we begin. Now. Okay, so, as a reminder, this story takes place... Well, the story was written when Diamond and Pearl were more or less still a thing, so... Anything past that is, not at all in consideration of canon. Like, you just have to ignore everything that comes after it. So there will be some artifacts in here written as, as kind of like a result of that, like referencing certain things about the series that, in an authoritative sense that wouldn't make sense if you were looking at it from today's lens. And I know I'm being very purposely vague when I say that. But there we go. Okay. Final challenge by Matkin22. Chapter 1. Preparation. Ash yawned and turned over in his bed, the morning sunlight falling on his face. His nose was tickled by a twitching lightning-shaped tail, and sneezing, he awoke. He pulled himself upright and stared down the room, which prompted a wide grin to spread. It had been 2 years since his victory in the Sinnoh League. He had fought some of his toughest matches ever against Katie, Nando, and, of course, Paul. He smiled, reliving the final match against Paul. It had been very close, but in the end, Pikachu had managed to triumph over his Electivire. After that, he had been permitted to take the Elite Four Challenge, the final test for aspiring Pokemon Masters. The requirements for this were very tough. He had to defeat an Elite Four member of his choice from each of the 4 main regions before being able to battle against the champion. And the kicker was that he couldn't lose a single match. Those battles had been tough, but over the course of the next 2 years, he had taken on and defeated Agatha of Kanto, Karen of Johto, Glacia of Hoenn, and Lucian of Sinnoh. His last opponent, the one he would battle today, was Cynthia of Sinnoh. Ash stretched and jumped out of bed. He knew that to defeat Cynthia, he would need to use the strongest 6 Pokemon he had captured and befriended since leaving Pallet Town to start his journey 10 years ago. 7, he thought. That's how many frontier symbols I needed to beat the battle frontier. And then, when I beat the frontier, I was offered the position of frontier brain. I couldn't take it then. I only just learned about the Sinnoh. I wasn't ready to just hang around, waiting for challenges to show up every few weeks. Now, I should probably also state, as well, for obvious reasons, the story takes place in a separate canon from Maze Crush. So, like, different timeline, different everything. Where the exact, divergence point lies is a matter of debate. It's something that I've never really been able to pin down myself, but, for the sake of argument, but just so y'all know, this is a different continuity from when Maze Crush, from what Maze Crush diverged from, so yeah. So, obviously, it's not canon to the story, but, I mean, why would it be? It was written by someone different, but, just figure I should still remind y'all, just in case. He looked around his room and smiled slightly. He still didn't think he was ready, but while he was traveling around Sinnoh, Scott, the man who had built the frontier and had encouraged Ash to participate in it, had constructed an 8th location, the Battle Coliseum. Construction on it had been completed just as Ash was halfway through the Elite Four challenge. It's truly an amazing building. It opened the elements in a similar way to both the Battle Factory and the Battle Palace, so that flying types had room to maneuver. There's a large pool in the shape of a Pokeball at the center of the circular field, surrounded on all sides by interchanging patches of grass and rock. I don't think I'm ready to stop traveling yet, Ash thought. Maybe that's okay, though. When I started the Elite Four challenge, May and Max began to tour a region I'd never heard of. Freyan region sure does have a lot of unique Pokemon. Can't wait to see which one she caught. Thinking of his friends, he began to feel a little sad. While Brock, Misty, Tracy, Max, and Dawn had all managed to make it in time for this battle, May hadn't been able to arrive in time. He sighed. He'd spoken to her only last night. She had been stranded in Johto's Cyanwood City because of a powerful storm. While Max had gone straight back to Petalburg City after traveling around Freyan, May had decided to compete in one last Freyan contest just for fun before heading straight to Kanto via the Johto Sea routes. He shook his head in disbelief at the memory of how powerful that storm had been. He had endured similar conditions during an eventful journey through the Orange Islands. It began to grow uneasy as he remembered how close to Cyanwood the Whirl Islands were, and that a similar creature to the one involved in the Orange Island storm had once lived there. Unconsciously, his hand moved to his chest, feeling the pendant beneath the sheet. I'm just glad she's okay, he muttered. At least the power plant was able to get the electricity flowing again so that I could at least talk to her. Chu? He heard a voice say. He pushed away those thoughts and fixed a grin to his face, turning to Pikachu, who had only just woken up and was looking at Ash inquiringly. It's nothing, he reassured his friend. Just wishing that an old friend was here today. Pikachu nodded knowingly and sprang from the bed to Ash's shoulders. Ready to win today, old pal? He murmured. Pika! Pikachu replied. His nose twitched.
Boo! You stink!
Thank you, Orville. His nose twitched. He jumped from Ash's stomach and sprang towards the door, which opened automatically. Ash laughed and chased after his friend. It didn't take him long to realize that Pikachu was leading him into the kitchen. Morning, Brock, he said brightly as he entered, sniffing the air. Is that sausage I smell? Brock laughed. Some things never change, he chuckled. He placed a big plate of sausage, pancakes, and a bowl of fruit salad on the table before sitting down across from the trainer. How'd you sleep, Ash? Great, he said, his mouth full of pancake as Pikachu jumped onto the table. I'm really looking forward to the battle today. Only a couple of hours to go. Where's everyone else gone, though? Let's see. Max is out in the Coliseum training as Gardevoir. Professor Oak, Tracy, and Delia on their way from Pallet Town. They didn't bother coming over for the night because it's the closest place to the Coliseum. I'm here, obviously, and I think that Misty's training her Gyarados with Max. As for Dawn, I'm not sure where she... I'm right here! Dawn interrupted from behind them. She pulled out a chair from the table and plonked herself down, grabbing a couple of pancakes and sausages, then stealing the ketchup bottle away from Pikachu. Way before Pikachu could grab it. Her long blue hair swished around her head as she deftly tossed it backwards so that a few stray strands wouldn't enter her mouth as she ate. Morning, Brock. Morning, Ash, she added as an afterthought. Ash smiled at her. Morning, Dawn. Did everyone manage to come? She asked. His eyes looked suddenly downcast as, once again, he clutched the pennant beneath the shirt, an action not missed by any of his table companions. Oh, it's a big Mochi friend! It's a big Yubi friend! How you doing, Yubi? How are you? Doing some more. Finally doing another one of these. Crazy, right? I know. How are you doing, Yubi? I'm good to hear that you're good. I'm doing all right. I'm really tired lately, though. Like, really sleepy, and I think it must be the weather or something. Like, the days are getting shorter. It's gotta be seasonal depression or something. But thank you for the hug, Yui. Alright. His eyes looked suddenly downcast as, once again, he clutched the pennant beneath the shirt, an action not missed by any of his table companions. Don looked sideways at Brock, who had a complete understanding on his face. Ash, you know that if it was possible, she would have moved the continents to be here for you, Brock said gently. Ash was silent for a minute. I know, he said at last. But I was really hoping that she would have been able to make it. She's the only one of my friends that just couldn't get here because of that storm. Don looked at him with a winning smile. Ash, you're an official frontier brain now, he said. You're the most experienced trainer that I know, and traveled through Hoenn and Kanta with me, and you know that sometimes these things will happen. It's unfortunate, but there's nothing that can be done. If there was any way possible to get here today, May would have done it. Look at the bright side about today, Brock said, trying to lift his friend's spirits. As you're finally able to break in the Colosseum. Plus, as a frontier brain, you're allowed to carry around as many Pokemon as you want, just like Noland. Look how happy they'll all be, able to spend all their time outside of the Pokeballs with you. Ash looked up, a smile spreading on his face. You're both right, he said. I'm really looking forward to being able to spend more time with all my Pokemon. I just don't think I'm ready to settle down yet, though. I need a new challenge. What I really want to do is explore at least one more region, probably Freyan. I'm sure Scott would understand, Brock said, smiling at his friend's insatiable desire to travel. Come on, Pikachu, Ash said, now back in full spirits. You can get a little more training before the match, and make sure that my team is ready to battle. Thanks for the breakfast, Brock! He dashed off with Pikachu on his shoulder. Brock sighed as he held up the nearly empty ketchup bottle at eye level. You know, this is full this morning, said Don, who giggled. I think Pikachu enjoyed it, Brock. It was your homemade stuff, right? Yeah, he said. Made from tomatoes picked straight out of the garden. Brock shook his head in disbelief. Pikachu sure does love his ketchup. Don leaned in towards them. Do you think we should tell him? She asked. Brock shook his head. No, he said. Let it be a surprise. They haven't seen each other in so long. Thank goodness the professor was still in Pallet Town when news came in about that storm. It was lucky that Gary was able to find it so quickly. Can't wait to finally meet May, Don said. I really hope that they'll be able to get it here in time. She really misses her. Brock smiled. Knowing those two and what they do for Ash, he said, I wouldn't be surprised if they were only a town away right now. And that is chapter 1. I spent more time stalling than I spent reading that. Wow. My goodness, man. Crazy. But yeah. So yeah, that was first chapter. First chapter, y'all. That was the first chapter. That was the first chapter, y'all, and I said that twice. On purpose. I'm trying to see if... I wonder if I should read the author's note towards the end. So remember how I said this was not related to May's crush at all? Well, that is still accurate. But that doesn't mean that that story was not an inspiration. The author did explicitly mention you know, Maze Crush as being kind of like a goal of his, like trying to get the story to be at least around like half that length of that story. Which I believe sounded around like a little more than 100,000 words or something. I actually don't know at the top of my head. But yeah, you can tell that Matkin22 was also in on the Maze Crush train. Excuse me. But one of the awesome things about this story though is that yeah, as much as Maze Crush does have, you know, like such a fundamental impact on, you know, on my life. This story's plot is significantly more complex, let's say. It's definitely, this is where I could probably like kind of see where you said that it was not a shipping fic, or it's like a shipping fic without the shipping, because the way in which he approached it, or in which they approached it, I don't want to assume gender here, but the direction in which they approached it, basically necessitated planning. He wrote the beginning with the end in mind. Like, actually, I would go so far as to say he probably wrote the ending before everything else. Or at least he knew what the ending was going to be before anything else. So a big part of writing this was for them to actually, weave the story in a way so that it would actually get to that end point. Whereas with like stuff like Maze Crush, you can kind of more or less just write by the seat of your pants there, because the emotion and all that, that's a lot of stuff that you don't really necessarily need to plan for. A lot of the stuff that happens in the, you know, in the meantime is just sort of stuff that just kind of comes to you as you write. And that's one of the things that's really different for, like, you know, the fanfic that I'm writing right now, actually. Those that, you know, the one that I've mentioned multiple times and that I want to release eventually, trademark, is that, you know, there's a lot of planning involved in this one. It's not really something that I could just write like by the seat of my pants like I did with other ones in the past. So I think from that perspective, I would say that that's probably where the description of this story being like a not a shipping fic, or a shipping fic without the shipping comes into play, but I don't know. I still think that don't really think that does the story a service. But even so, I can see where it came from. And now, okay, now it's time for the second chapter. Gosh dang it, I'm sorry. I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of stuff to talk about here. Wait, where's the chapter title? There it is. Gosh dang. Okay. All right. Now, chapter 2, Return. Ash ran through the house just behind the Colosseum, rooms flashing by as he made his way outside. Stepping into the bright sunlight, he flexed his arms energetically and crossed the small strip of land to the structure that towered over him and housed the large circular battlefield that held a combination of water, grass, and rock. He paused a moment as he entered, watching Max and Misty at the center of the field, and their Gardevoir and Gyarados sparring each other. "Gardevoir, use Shadow Ball!" Max shouted. The white-green simian-shaped Pokemon brought its long green arms together, and a glowing purple-black ball began to form. "Gyarados, dive underwater, dodge, and then use Aqua Tail!" Misty retaliated. The gigantic, atrocious Pokemon, battling from the large, deep pool at the center of the field, ducked its head underwater. The Shadow Ball flew into it, sending up a huge spray of water that momentarily that blocked the surface from view. A glowing blue tail sliced through the spray and connected with the Gardevoir, who then soared backwards from the impact and landed further up in the grass, unable to battle anymore. "Gardevoir!" Max shouted, running to his Pokemon. He held up her head and murmured soothingly to her for a moment. Then he stood up, took his Pokeball from his belt, and recalled her. Wiping his face quickly, he turned to Misty, who was walking towards him. That was a great battle, Misty. Thanks, he said. It was my pleasure, Max, she said with a smile. Won't take long until you beat me, though. You're stronger every time we battle. I might be getting stronger, Jake said, but I'll never be able to beat you. Gyarados is too powerful. That's not true, Max, Ash said, walking towards them from the shadowed entryway, picking his way carefully through one of the rock field segments. Misty and Max both jumped, surprised by Ax's sudden appearance. A Pokemon is only as strong as its trainer. If you don't have any confidence in your Pokemon, they won't have any confidence either. That's right, Max, Misty told him. A Pokemon's skill depends on the trust of the trainer. Call out your Gardevoir. Looking slightly puzzled, Max sent them out. Gardevoir, as he said, kneeling in front of the Psychic type, you have an incredible friendship with Max. If the danger was real enough, would you give your life to protect him? The Psychic type responded with a nod. You see, Ash explained to Max, it takes a lot for a human to earn the trust of a Gardevoir. But they have an incredible sense of loyalty that almost no other type of Pokemon does. They've even been known to sacrifice their life for their trainer, but only if they share a deep bond. Since Gardevoir would do that for you, it means that we have a really strong friendship, Max realized, just like you and Pikachu. Exactly, Ash laughed. Since when did you know so much about Gardevoir, Ash? Misty asked with a smirk. You're normally too busy charging into battle to think about things like loyalty. Are you kidding? Ash asked. The best thing about Pokemon is my friendship with them. Being friends is much more important than winning any battle. All my Pokemon are as close to me as any Gardevoir ever was to its trainer. Anyways, I know so much about Gardevoir because I almost had one myself. You mean that you almost caught a Gardevoir once? Max asked decidedly. They're really rare in the wild, and how'd you manage to find one? It wasn't quite like that, Max. Ash laughed. He threw a Pokeball into the air. Come on out, Gallade! In a beam of red light, a Pokemon erupted to the ground. Roughly the same height as Gardevoir, it looked very similar, but at the same time, quite different. Wow, a Gallade, Max shouted. It's so cool! Especially as in close range battling. Well, Gardevoir for long range battles because that makes moves like Psychic and Shadow Ball are easier to use, but Gallade are so dangerous up close. They have huge loyalty to anyone who catches them, and they only revolve when they're... Ash smiled and shook his head slightly as he watched Max regurgitate everything he'd ever heard about Gallade. He turned to Misty and saw that she was smiling slightly too. So, when you say that friendship is more important than any battle, does that include today's? She asked him. Yup, Ash answered. I want to win, of course, but Cynthia is one of the most powerful trainers alive, and I wouldn't want to force any of my Pokemon into doing anything that they didn't want to do. I'll need some luck today, but I've beaten 4 members of the Elite Four and done a lot of training too. I think I have a chance, as long as she doesn't use Rayquaza anyways. Misty looked puzzled then. Why would Cynthia have a Rayquaza, she asked. It's a legendary Pokemon and probably impossible to capture. It's a long story, Ash said with a reminiscent grin, thinking of the time when he, Brock, and Dawn had been caught in the fantasy of a Miss Magius. Have you chosen your team yet? Misty asked. You have a lot of Pokemon to choose from. Tell me about it, Ash said, shaking his head. All of them want to battle, but I've decided on my 6. I need speed, power, and luck to win, so I've chosen the 6 that can help me out most with that. 2 of them are on their way right now, so hopefully we'll be able to train a little before the match starts. Misty sighed and looked around the battlefield. I hope that our sparring didn't damage the field before the match. Don't worry about it, Ash said. The grass will dry and the pool is self-filling. I can't see any actual damage, so I don't think that you two will have shown me up in front of the world when the match is filmed later today. Misty then shoved him playfully. Oh, just go on train, she said, walking over to Max, who was still staring at Gallade and spouting facts. Yeah, apparently he's still spouting facts. He never stopped. Come on, you said, taking Max by the ear and dragging him off. Hey, what are you doing? I'm not Brock! You're looking more and more like him with the way you're staring at that poor Pokemon, Misty said. Let's leave Ash to train. Okay, just let go of me, it hurts! Ow! Ash chuckled as he watched the two leave. Some things never change, he said to Pikachu. Ash began walking towards the other side of the Coliseum. Come on, Gallade, let's get the others in train, he said. I'm guessing that you want a battle today, right? Gallade explained, crossing its blades and then swinging outwards. Without warning, Ash began running. Catch me if you can! He called. Gallade then muttered under his breath, trying to catch up with his trainer, and with which Pikachu agreed, running alongside it. Laughing, Ash put on a final spurt of speed to reach the exit from the Coliseum before either of his two Pokemon could pick up. A huge spurt of fire shot downwards from the sky, enveloping Ash completely and bringing him to a sudden halt. Gallade! The Pokemon called cheerfully as it dodged past the black trainer, saluting up at the sky with one of its blades. Pika-Pee! Pikachu called, waving its arms excitedly at the sky. Okay. I should say that I'm. It's been a while since I've done this, so I have to like switch between tabs again. Crazy, right? Oh boy. So falling off the Met movement, Ash craned his neck skywards. He stared for a few moments until he distinguished two moving orange lights against the brilliance of the sun. The lights quickly grew into two distinct shapes, gliding down to the Coliseum. He's here! Ash shouted, hopping up and down in alternating feet of excitement. And it looks like Liza and Charla came too. I'm down here, Charizard! The fire dragon roared into light, shot down another torrent of flames, blackening Ash anew. Great to see you again, Ash, Liza smiled as she jumped the last few feet from Charla's back, landing deftly on the ground. See how accurate Charizard's flamethrower has gotten? He's able to hit you as you were running from a couple hundred feet up in the air. I think he'll be pretty happy with his power, too. Stronger than ever. Great, Ash said with a smile, wiping the soot from his face and turning to face his Pokemon. Charizard, this is gonna be great! Are you ready to help me in my most important battle ever? Charizard roared and shot jets of fire into the sky. I want to ask you something, Ash, Liza said, suddenly serious. Yeah? Yes. See, thing is that Charizard's gotten just too strong. None of the other Charizard in the Charizard Valley can even match him anymore. He beats them in battle every single time. I don't think there's anyone left for him to train against anymore. So I was wondering if you'd like to take Charizard back now and train with him together so he can get stronger in ways that can't be learned in the Charizard Valley. You mean you want me to take Charizard back? You wouldn't live in the Charizard Valley anymore? Ash asked, stunned. That's right, Liza said eagerly. You could be together again properly for the first time since Johto. Well, I don't know, Ash said slowly. What do you want to do, Charizard? Do you want to stay with your friends in the Charizard Valley, or would you like to be with me again? Decision point! I'm kidding. Without hesitation, Charizard stomped off behind Ash and let out a low roar. Ash looked at him for a moment and then threw his arms around Charizard's neck, laughing as tears streamed down his face. Welcome to the team again, Charizard, he said. Oh, and hey, that's the end of chapter 2 already. Okay, I should probably state, a lot of these beginning chapters are, like, really, really short. Mostly no more than, like, 10 minutes or so each. That does change, of course. I think that's kind of, like, maybe a normal thing that happened. Like, even Pika Master ADV had that happen, too. But it's, you know, it's a thing that happens. I mean, it's something that gets better. They do eventually get longer. Maybe with like the speed that I'm reading things, it's not really that noticeable or what have you. But you know, it's you know, it's still something that I figure I should mention. All right. Chapter 3, Red Onion. I mean, reunion. Sorry. It's reunion. Come on. Come on, this is a serious story. This is a serious story. There needs to be, you know, serious statements, right? Liza smiled as she watched the three friends reunite, with Gallade waiting a little shyly in the background. He hadn't met Ash's Charizard yet. She turned to Charla, who was watching the scene with a little sadness. Don't worry, Charla, she whispered. We'll visit them as often as we can. It's not as if the trip is a lot longer than it is to Blackthorn City, and we go there a lot, don't we? Charla gave a sad little roar in reply, but her eyes brightened a little. Liza smiled and was about to hop onto Charla's back when she noticed the little package that she was holding securely. Oh, how could I have forgotten? She muttered, slapping her head. Hey, Ash! She called, turning around. I have something for you. Wait? What is it? Liza took the package from Charla's arms and gave it to Ash. It's a Pokemon egg, she explained. I found it with Charla the other day, so look at the pattern on the side, she said, pointing towards the flames on the eggshell. I'm pretty sure that it'll hatch into our Charmander, and I think this is from your Charizard, so I want you to have it. Give it to someone special. Wow, Liza. Charlotte? Thanks! He slammed, his face lighting up. I know just who to give it to. I'll leave you to warm up with your Pokemon now, Liza said, looking at Charizard fondly. Well, see you at the match, Ash. Good luck! Ash beamed. Thank you. And thank you for looking after Charizard for all these years. Really taking good care of him. Don't thank me, Liza said, her face embarrassed as she coughed slightly. Thank Charla. You spent a lot more time with your Charizard than I did. Well then thank you, Charla, he said, transferring his gaze. I really appreciate everything you've ever done for him. Charla growled, her orange face tinged with a slight shade of red as she shuffled slightly, looking at the ground. In a sudden movement, she shot two blasts of fire, one at Ash and the other at Charizard. Ash stood there, blackened again as Charla took the air, circled around, swept down, and pulled Liza onto her back. Never get on the good side of a Charizard, Liza chuckled to herself as Charla swept out of the Coliseum, leaving Ash and Charizard out of sight. Ash sighed as he wiped his face clean again and looked down at his now crispy Sinnoh outfit. I knew I shouldn't have put this on today, he thought. After a quick wash and change into his old Hoenn outfit, Ash stepped back outside, stretching in the fresh air again. I guess Charizard must have been extra pleased to see you today, Ash, Brock said humorously as he came around the corner of the building. You don't normally need to change after one of his flamethrowers. Ash just sighed, thinking about his ruined clothes. Is your team picked yet? Ash nodded. I'm going with Pikachu and Charizard, he said, as well as Sceptile, Snorlax, and Gallade. Who's the last member of your team? Don't tell me you haven't decided yet. At this, Ash simply smiled. Who? That, my friend, will be a mystery until the battle. He took a step forwards, then walked into something soft. Oh, he gasped, falling to the ground hard. Ash, what's wrong? I walked into something. Around standing upright. But there's nothing there, Brock said, eyeing the spot in trepidation before looking carefully around both of them. Could be a light screen or a reflect, I suppose, Ash thought. But they're normally hard, not soft. He took a step towards Brock and crashed again. Ash! Brock shouted as he looked up, seemingly dazed. And to Brock's surprise, he gave a huge grin. I think my final team members just arrived, he said. I thought Pokemon that can make themselves invisible, Brock noted. I haven't, but I am friends with one, Ash explained. He reached out his hand and lightly began to move his fingers in a tickling motion. There was a chirping noise that sounded a little like laughter, and suddenly a white and red dragon materialized. Brock's jaw dropped. Latios? He whispered in disbelief. How did you... I call Lorenzo and Bianca and Altamare, Ash explained as Latios nuzzled up to him, crooning happily. They went to find Latios, and she was more than happy to come over. Is it allowed? He asked doubtfully, eyeing the Eon Pokemon. Ash shrugged. I don't see why it wouldn't be. Ain't no rule that says that a dog can't play basketball! Anyway. When I battled Nolan to use Articuno, and they were just friends. But you should know the rules, Brock, since you are the referee. True, Brock sighed. Well, I think it'll be okay. I'll have to double check the rules just to be safe. You don't want to battle Cynthia with just 5 Pokemon. Ash smiled. Thanks, Brock. I better start training now, though. I getting distracted, and I don't want to go into battle without warming up. Good luck, Ash, Brock said as the trainer walked back towards the Coliseum. Hey, Brock, Ash then said, pausing a moment. Yes? Thanks for agreeing to stay here as the official referee for the Battle Coliseum. I couldn't have picked a better choice. Brock smiled in response. Thanks for asking if I could be the one to have the job, he said. Go on, you need to start warming up. I'll check on the egg that Liza gave you while I look over the rules to make sure that Latias is allowed to compete. Horacia, Ash called to Latias, running towards the training ground at the side of the Coliseum. She chirped happily and tore up after him, Pikachu running behind. Panting hard, Ash passed by the Coliseum. He was almost in the training grounds when Pikachu shot forwards with a quick attack. Momentarily stunned, he paused and Latias took that advantage to knock his feet from under him as she followed Pikachu into the grounds. He picked himself off the ground, dismayed by what had happened. He entered the training ground and was surprised to see his 6 choices for the match already standing in line, waiting for him. Snorlax, looking to see if Ash had brought in any food. Sceptile, leaning casually against a tree with a twig in its mouth. Charizard, eyeing the strength of the grass type and wondering if he'd make a good opponent, despite the type differences. Gallade, blades crossed across his chest as he waited for the training to begin. Latias, hovering off the ground in the midst of a conversation with Pikachu, who sat on her back. Are you ready, guys? Ash asked them. There was an assorted chorus of cries, chirpings, and roars. This is the biggest match any of us have ever had. Still remember when Cynthia beat all 6 of Paul's Pokemon, including his Torterra, while only using her Garchomp. This is going to be really tough, but I know that we can do it. Charizard greeted Ash's statement with a burst of fire from his mouth. Sceptile glanced sideways at the fire type, eyeing his strength. Then let's get training! Now remember, we're just warming up, not actually fighting. Split into pairs and try some practice attacks. Sceptile and Charizard immediately turned to face each other. Fire type's tail flame flickering eagerly. The grass type's mouth relaxed into an easy smile. Snorlax slumbered around the pair to introduce itself to Gallade, who examined the enormous Pokemon with interest. Pikachu tapped Latias on the shoulder and her eyes brightened. She had been afraid that, not knowing any of Ash's Pokemon, they wouldn't want to be around her or train with her. Pikachu jumped off her back and turned to face her, his red cheeks crackling furiously with electricity. Hold up, Pikachu, Ash called, drawing out his Pokedex. I want to check out Latias' moves first. He scanned Latias, getting her dex data before pressing a button to the right to check out what moves she knew. Let's see. Latias, try a Dragon Breath attack on that tree over there. As commanded, she turned to the tree and opened her mouth, forming a green ball that seemed to crackle with power. Charizard, watching carefully at the corner of his eyes, snorted disdainfully and released the attack straight away, almost forgetting to dodge Sceptile's Bullet Seed attack. When Latias judged that she'd stored enough energy, she shot the Dragon Breath powerfully, and it slammed right into the tree, burning a hole right through it. Charizard, stunned at the power, stood stock still and took a Leaf Blade in the shoulder. Stumbling backwards, he watched Latias with a new respect in his eyes. By waiting for only a few seconds, she built up the attack to a power level that could never be achieved by firing straight away, something that he had never thought of. That's some power, Ash exclaimed. Now try a Zen Headbutt to knock the tree down. Sceptile, Gallade, the tree falls, slice it apart with your Leaf Blade and Psycho Cut. Latias lunged at the tree, the top of her head glowing a bright blue and almost seeming to cast a protective sheet of glass over herself. She smashed into the tree and broke through easily. Sceptile and Gallade both leapt forwards, the leaves on Sceptile's arms extending and glowing a bright green, Gallade's blades a shivering lavender. They both sliced the tree expertly, with blinding speed. In almost no time, there was a tall pile of fireworks standing where the tree had been. Excellent, Ash said happily, failing to notice a large shadow passing over him, although all his Pokemon noticed. You're all really strong, he continued. We'll be fantastic at the match today. Good job! Apparently, okay, apparently Pikachu said that? I don't get it. Whatever, we're going with it. What did you just say, Pikachu? Pikachu, Pikachu said, shaking his head. That's funny. I could have sworn that you're talking like a Pidgeotto, he said. But then Gallade pointed out one of his blades behind Ash, let out a grunt. looking extremely confused, he then turned around. I think that your Glade is telling you to look behind you. A familiar voice laughed as she placed her hand on his shoulders. Ash felt his knees grow weak and his face run hot as he turned to look in the laughing sapphire eyes of May. Oh boy, she's here! There she is! Oh ha ha! There she is! Crazy, right? Ah! Finally! The Deuteragonist is here! It's awesome! So yeah, we got some more bonding time with Ash and his Pokemon, I suppose. But hey, looky here! The real reason we're here! Alright. Now. Alright, Chapter 4. Build up. Hey, Ash stammered, completely shocked. Ash? She laughed back. How did you get here? He asked, somehow managing to string together a coherent sentence. Caught a lift from one of your old friends, he said, trying to look at the beautiful hawk-like Pokemon behind her. Ash's eyes eyed him as he took in the sight of the tan body and the long, colorful head feathers that cascaded down its back. Pidgeot? He murmured, taking a couple of steps forward. Pidgeot! The flying type responded, flapping its wings. Can't believe it, he said softly. How come you were in the Johto region? How did you know where May was and where I was? I think I can answer that, Ashy boy, he heard an old friend say. Ash rolled around to see his old rival Gary approaching, with Professor Oak and his mother, Delia Ketchum, close behind. You see, Gary said, after you told Granddad about the storm and about how May wouldn't be able to come and see your battle today, he told us. We figured that was just too bad that one of your closest friends wouldn't be able to be there when the rest of us would, so we decided to think of a way to get May here. That's when Gary had a real brainwave, Professor Oak cut in. He came up with the idea of sending your old Pidgeot to bring her here. Well, I got in touch with May at the Cianwood Pokemon Center. Gary went out to see if he could find you Pidgeot. Tracy had told us that he'd seen it early that morning, so we knew that it was in the area. Yeah, it didn't take long to find Pidgeot, Gary said. Once I was able to explain the situation to it, it was more than happy to go to Cianwood. I took it over to your house because I knew you'd have a picture of May in there, and once I found the picture and showed it to Pidgeot, it just took off. I don't think I've ever seen a Pokemon move so fast. I didn't know you had a picture of me, Ash, May said. Ash's stomach jumped a little nervously and he held his face to be... He felt his face begin growing warm again. He quickly turned and looked over at the 6 Pokemon, noticing that Latias is looking between him and May curiously. It's just a picture of you, me, Brock, and Max, he said. You'd taken it when we all met up by accident last year. Oh, that picture! May nodded in comprehension. I didn't realize that it was so visible. I figured it would be stuck in a drawer and gathering dust or something. Huh? Gary asked. That wasn't the picture I was talking about. It was the other one, framed on your... Ash's face went beet red. Luckily for him, Latias caused a minor distraction by swooping forwards and knocking Gary's feet out from under him playfully before he could finish the sentence. While Latias zoomed playfully around Oak, Delia, and Gary, distracting them completely, Ash collapsed to his knees with his head in his hands, groaning silently. How could I have left that picture out in plain sight? He berated himself. It's so embarrassing that Gary just blurted that out. I hope he wasn't listening too closely. Did I hear something about a picture of me, Ash? He heard May whisper soothingly into his ear. Then he went scarlet again, failing to see Sceptile, Charizard, and Glade all giving each other knowing looks as they stood over him. See, thing is, Pikachu, photo! He lapsed into an incoherent string of letters and syllables. The only words May actually able to understand being nice frame and put away. She grinned, enjoying his discomfort as he babbled on. Finally, she put her hand over his mouth, forcing him to stop talking. That's better, she laughed, taking her hand away. Come on, Ash, concentrate. Look, Dawn's running over. I wonder why she's in such a hurry. Dawn's rush had caught the attention of Professor Oak, Delia, and Gary, too. Latias took the opportunity to escape from the escape from their frays and fly safely around May. Ash! Dawn called out breathlessly as soon as she got close. Cynthia's here! You gotta greet her before the battle starts, but you better hurry. The first people in the audience are already finding their seats, and oh, Ash, is that a Latias? Ash grinned as she came to a skidding halt in front of the legendary Pokemon, who eyed her quizzically. Thanks for telling me about Cynthia, Dawn, he said as Oak, Delia, and Gary began to hurry to the Coliseum. Where is she? Oh, Misty and Max took her to your house. I think she's in the living room, Dawn said, still staring at Latias with a look of absolute wonder. Thanks, Dawn. I guess we should go, huh, Pikachu? Pikachu agreed, jumping onto his shoulder. He turned to his Pokemon and quickly returned them all. Ash, I'll come with you, May volunteered. Ash stumbled, but caught his footing in time. That's okay, May, he said. You should head into the stands now while there's still time to get good seats. I have some reserves especially for all my friends, and even though I thought you wouldn't be able to come today, I set one aside just in case. Anyways, Latias really seems to like you, so I'll need you to look after her a little while longer. Wait a minute, though. If, encouraged you to head into the stands while there's still good time to get good seats, and yet he then said that there was reserved seating. Anyway. All right, Ash, May said, looking a little disappointed. Good luck today. I'll see you after the match, I guess. She stepped forwards and gave Ash a quick, close hug before turning and heading in the direction of the battlefield. Latias sat beside. Come on, Pidgeot, she called. The flying type touched the air after her, brushing Ash's head lightly with one fast. Ash stood there for a moment, still feeling the warmth of May's hug on his body, and his cheeks began to glow again. Looks like Ash has a girlfriend, Dawn giggled, snapping Ash back to reality. He flushed even deeper. Do not, said defensively. Just haven't seen her in a while, and I'm really glad she was able to come today. Sure, Dawn taunted as she began to head over to Ash's house. I guess I'll have to go and apologize to you then. Tell her how you were too busy to say goodbye to your girlfriend to even say hello to her. She giggled to herself and began to run. Hey, wait! Ash shouted, determined to beat her to Cynthia so that she couldn't spread any tall tales about him. Pikachu sighed before taking off after the two humans. Oh boy, so it's already... Oh boy, the shippiness is already happening! Oh yeah! Let's go! God, I love that music. Yoko Shimomura, man. I love it. It's so good. Kingdom Hearts 3 music, man. It's so good. Now that. Ash, Cynthia said, rising from her seat to shake his hand. It's good to see you again. You ready for our battle? As ready as I'll ever be, he said. Better watch out though, Cynthia. You didn't get where you are today by luck, but neither did I. Think that this match will be easy, then you'll have to think again. Just what I wanted to hear, Cynthia said, pounding her fist into her open hand in excitement as she sat down again. Win or lose today, Ash, I want you to promise me two things. Those being... You'll give this battle everything you have. No worries there, Dawn laughed. That's the second thing. We'll go out for some ice cream afterwards. You, me, and all of your friends. So I think that'll be okay, Ash said with a grin. Dawn nodded eagerly. Great. Cynthia stood and walked to the door. I'll be waiting in the Coliseum, Ash, she said over her shoulder. Good luck. With that, she walked out towards the battlefield. Are you ready, Pikachu? Ash asked, walking into the room. Pika Pika! Check the rule book, Ash, Brock said quickly before the trainer could run out the room. There's nothing that says using Latias is against the rules. You'll be able to use her without any problems. See, it's like I said, there ain't no rule that says the dog can't play basketball. Anyway. Thanks, Brock, Ash said, relief evident on his face. I was a little worried, but I'm glad that you were able to check for me. He began to walk towards the door, Brock at his side, Pikachu on his shoulder, and Dawn close behind. I checked the egg too, Brock said. It's definitely a Charmander egg. Not sure how long it'll be until it hatches, though. That all depends on the trainer who carries it. Well, I already have Charizard, Ash said, so I think I'll give the egg. So I think I'll give the egg to someone. Do you plan on giving it to? Brock asked. For a moment, Ash's face flushed pink, but he quickly managed to get back to his normal color, hoping that Brock and Pikachu hadn't noticed. There's only one person I could give it to. May looked over the battlefield in awe. It's enormous, she said. I've never seen a battlefield this size or this shape either. You're supposed to incorporate portions of each of the 4 main battlefields used in a regular tournament, Max said beside her. Grass, rock, water, and ice. The only thing was, they couldn't figure out how to add the ice part of the field, so they just left it out. They made it this size and shape so that Pokemon would have as much room to maneuver as possible. One thing using a Caterpie or a Bidoof in a regular-sized battlefield, but another thing using a Gyarados or a Lapras, you wouldn't have as much room to use their full potential. Wow, they whispered. Look, Max said, pointing towards the pool. The pool was put in so that water Pokemon could fight too. I mean, you could use a Blastoise on land, but it's almost impossible to use something like a Lumineon. I think the best parts about the Coliseum is how the fields were melded and the boundaries. Grass and rock are always interchanging, so there is no set advantage anywhere on the field. Why do you like the boundaries so much? They go right up to the walls, Jared very familiar voice say. Dad! They squealed, turning around. Norman grinned at her, and Carolyn right next to him. We couldn't miss this match, Norman said. Not after everything Ash has done for us and you two kids. We were so thrilled to get a personal invitation, Carolyn beamed. I really hope Ash wins. Just imagine, he was only one win away from becoming an official Pokemon Master. Yeah, so this story does kind of define what a Pokemon Master is. So I mean, you know, it was never really defined. So I mean, they just went ahead and defined it here. So you know, I think that's fine. But as I was saying, Norman said, leaning into May before Carolyn could take the conversation in a different direction. The boundaries of the battlefield go right up to the right, or go right up to the walls. That way, a Pokemon can only be declared out of bounds if it actually goes into the audience. Oh, that's a fantastic way to do it, May murmured. Gives every Pokemon the chance to battle for as long as they can. She frowned as she looked at something that didn't seem quite right, however. Are those little black marks scattered around the field? She asked, realizing what looked wrong. They're really clustered together in some places. So I have no idea, Max said with a shrug. I've never noticed them when I was sparring with Misty earlier. May felt a tap on her shoulder. Excuse me, Pleasant Voice said, but is that your friend? Excuse me, but is that your friend? May looked beside her and gasped in shock. What the? Uh-oh. Okay, I got scared that I would have to... Okay, I thought something might have happened. I got scared a little bit. Okay, we're fine. Anyway. Excuse me, Pleasant Voice said, but is that your friend? May looked beside her and gasped in shock. The girl next to her, wearing a green shirt and white shorts and hat, was leaning dangerously over the edge of the seat, trying to get the attention of the poor people selling popcorn, drinks, and other snacks who were currently in the section below them. A good 10-foot drop. May seized her and dragged her back into her seat. The girl looked at May with a hurt expression in her eyes. Don't do that, May whispered furiously. You almost fell. What would have happened if you'd done that? The girl began flapping her arms soundlessly with a truly innocent smile on her face. You can't do that yet, May told her. Remember our plan. Stay hidden until Ash calls you. Then you can transform, but not now. It causes too much mayhem. Realization crossed the girl's face, and she nodded soundlessly, flattening herself into her seat, but looking almost sulky. May sighed in relief that she wasn't in danger. Thanks, she said, turning to the person behind her. But this caused her jaw to drop. Annabelle? She asked. What are you doing here? You would... Her eyes ran along the people next to her. All of you the Frontier Brains here? She asked, her eyes taking in Nolan, Brandon, and Lucy. And they're not villains this time either. Let's go. See, that's one major divergence from this, from Maze Crush. Anyway, I need to stop saying anyway as a segue. Why would I need to stop doing that? Or I could just not do that. I don't know. All right, back to the cartoon. Most of them, Annabelle said, her lavender hair fluttering slightly in the breeze. Greta's on the other side of the reserve section with Tucker. Spencer is really old now, and he couldn't make the journey. He retired a couple years ago, meaning there's still 7 Frontier brains, including Ash. May nodded in understanding, wondering briefly how old Spencer really was. Alright, I have to switch tabs. This is always gonna take some time, but you know what? Just bear with me, just bear with me. A sudden roar shook the Coliseum. Both scoreboards, one on each side of the battlefield, just lit up. They looked down at the field and saw Brock begin to walk towards the pool in the center, and Dawn approaching the same spot from the other side. They met in the center of the field, and Brock raised his arm for silence. This is a 6-on-6 match between the champion Cynthia. Huge roars flooded across the Coliseum again, and the scoreboard lit up to display Cynthia, Celestic Town in green, all caps. And the challenger, Ash. More screens. And the second half of the scoreboard lit up to read Ash, Pallet Town in red, also in all caps. Brock gestured for silence again. I am the referee for this event. Our commentator today is Dawn. The crowd roared again as Dawn waved her hands in acknowledgement, a big smile on her face. Awesome! Dawn gets to do commentary! I love commentary! I've done some Smash commentary in the past, so, you know, I think it's awesome. Anyway. There's no time limit for this match, Brock continued. Both the champion and the challenger may substitute Pokemon at any time. At this, Dawn took over. Both Cynthia and Ash are now approaching the Coliseum, she called out. Before they get here, the battlefield will make its final transformation. Dang. Oh. 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 Screw you. Yeah, screw you. Ah. Anyway. Before they get here, the battlefield will make its final transformation. She and Brock hurried off the pitch as several mechanical noises filled the air. Long, curving sections of the battlefield fell below the ground, only to have water from the self-replenishing pool fill the gaps. May gasped. This really gives water Pokemon a real chance to fight, she said to herself. Then her eyes widened as she saw what all the black marks were for. They, too, had dropped into the ground. Now trees of all shapes and sizes were springing up in ramifications. That must have taken a lot of planning to be able to fit trees in the battlefield and still enable everyone to see the battle at all times, she heard Pete say. It's fantastic, May murmured, unable to believe the look of the battlefield. Leading from the pool, rivers now ran through the Coliseum. Trees were grouped close together, standing alone in oddballs. The noise reached levels not that made May wince. A gigantic television screen next to each scoreboard had turned on. It was in split screen. 2 shadowy figures were emerging from the brilliant lights behind them. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Oh boy! Oh, we're about ready to start fighting, y'all! And wouldn't you know it, this chapter is appropriately called Battle. But also bad. I love this Fire Emblem music, man. It's so good. I love it. It's so good, man. The Coliseum erupted in cheering as Ash and Cynthia stepped into the battlefield from opposing ends of the pitch. It was so loud that May was forced to cover her ears. She glanced sideways and gave an inaudible shriek of terror. The girl who sat mutely beside her had jumped up when Ash walked into view and waved her arms wildly at him, once again nearly overbalancing. Meg groaned and dragged her back from the edge. Cynthia stood quietly, a tight smile on her face as she glanced quickly around the battlefield, noting the positions of the rivers, rocks, and trees. Ash was standing opposite her, watching his opponent as she carefully observed the battlefield. A shudder of joy ran through his chest. This is it, he thought. If I win this battle, I will be a Pokemon master. Two tall platforms now began to raise themselves out of the ground, both colored jet black. With Pikachu on his shoulder, Ash began to climb up the platform. As he reached the top and looked out over the battlefield, the audience quieted down. We will now determine which trainer shall choose their first Pokemon. Don's voice broke out, cutting through the little noise that remained. A large wheel with an alternating green and red pattern appeared in between the two still photos of Cynthia and Ash at the scoreboard. It began to glow and spin wildly for when it first looked down, and finally stopping on a red segment. Up in the stands, May, Max, Misty, Gary, and the rest of Ash's supporters groaned. Ash Ketchum will make the first choice, Dawn announced. Significant, because this means that Cynthia can counterpick! Why do I care about counterpick so much? Because I play Smash. Come on, man. Anything that makes me feel connected to Smash makes me feel good. I'm sorry. Anyway. Ash smiled at Cynthia and then looked up at the audience. It was inadvertent, but his gaze met May's. Her eyes locked for a moment, and then, with an almost invisible pink tinge on his face, he tore his gaze away. He noted Pidgeot perching on top of the Coliseum before turning his eyes to the battlefield. With a grin, he drew out a Pokeball and enlarged it with a click. Snorlax, I choose you! He shouted. With a blinding flash of red light, the gigantic Pokemon appeared amongst the rocks. Ash caught his Pokeball and glanced across at Cynthia, wondering what Pokemon she would pick. Gastrodon, to me! Cynthia called. And in another flash of red light, a pink and brown sea slug appeared on a patch of grass. Ash has chosen his Snorlax, caught in the Orange Islands, and Cynthia will be starting with her West Sinnoh Gastrodon. Dawn informed the crowd. I have to change tabs again. Sorry! Sorry. Listen, I worked hard on this. I deserve to have some time to... I deserve to have some time to switch. Anyway. Both combatants ready? Brock asked. He raised both his red and green flags. Begin! Gastrodon, into the pool! Cynthia cried. Snorlax, cut it off and use Mega Punch, Ash countered. Gastrodon began to move, rather sluggishly at first, but picking up speed as its 6 flippers began to move more quickly. Snorlax charged in, its hand glowing a brilliant white as it formed into a fist. Ash watched carefully as Snorlax moved around a rock, the large Pokemon running as fast as it could. It would be close, but it looked as if Snorlax would reach Gastrodon before it could jump into the water. Snorlax moved closer and began to swing its fist at this giant sea slug. Gastrodon, harden! Cynthia commanded at the last possible moment. A flash ran over Gastrodon's body, and Snorlax's Mega Punch bounced off harmlessly. Spore! Surprise. Now use Mud Bomb! Cynthia shouted. At point-blank range, the Gastrodon fired several blobs of earth, which exploded on impact with Snorlax's face, driving it back into the rocks with a force that shattered several of them. Snorlax, are you okay? Ash shouted. Relax, responded, pawing at its eyes to try and remove the dirt. Try a headbutt, Ash decided. Snorlax charged, head down towards the Gastrodon. Cynthia watched immobile as Snorlax ran right past the Gastrodon without even realizing it. No, it's behind you! Ash cried out desperately. Snorlax stopped in confusion and looked about, trying to spot his opponent. Snorlax must have gotten some dirt in his eyes from that mud bomb, May realized. You mean I can't see? Max asked in horror. Why else would it miss Gastrodon like that? She answered. Gastrodon, into the water and use Water Pulse, Cynthia commanded, leaving herself to now be in charge of this round. Gastrodon slipped easily into the pool at the center of the field and immediately launched a devastating ball of water at Snorlax. Snorlax, run right at it and use Headbutt! Ash shouted. The crowd gasped in disbelief as Snorlax charged straight for the attack. There was a devastating sound of imploding water and spray splashed in all directions. Ash grinned as the water fell to the ground and revealed Snorlax still running straight towards the pool. Cynthia gaped in disbelief. Use Ice Punch! Ash yelled, and a massive fist of ice crashed down into the surface of the water. The sheet of water froze and spread across the pool and rivers in the Coliseum. Troodon! The Gastrodon managed to blurt out before the sheet of ice enveloped it as well, freezing it immobile in the pond. What an incredible strategy! Dawn said in excitement. Ash used Gastrodon's own water pulse to clear Snorlax's vision and then had Snorlax use Ice Punch to freeze the pool and immobilize Gastrodon! Gastrodon, return, Cynthia said quietly, recalling the frozen Pokemon. You did a good job wearing down Snorlax, Gastrodon. Still use you later. Now, Spiritomb, to me! I lost my place here. Okay, so I have a bunch of like sticky notes kind of that show me like what songs play at what points. I showed them all at once, but it caused like the page to scroll down, so I've lost my place. So FML, I guess. Alright, anyway, okay. Found my place again. Alright, let's go back into this. You did a good job wearing down Snorlax, Gastrodon. I'll still use you later. Now, Spiritomb, to me! She called, setting out her second Pokemon. A large purple ghost type emerged, covered in green circular markings. And Cynthia's second Pokemon is the rare Spiritomb, a ghost dark type, Dawn informed everyone. Sometimes I have to switch songs like over and over again, really, really fast at the drop of a hat. Use Ominous Wind, Cynthia ordered. A dark blast of wind emanated from Pokemon's mouth and swirled at high speed towards Snorlax. Snorlax, dodge it! Ash called out desperately. Snorlax lumbered to get away, but the wind slammed right into the Pokemon, causing no damage at all, incidentally. I don't get it, Max muttered. Ominous Wind is a ghost type attack and has no effect on normal types. I don't understand why Cynthia would use it unless he gasped and sat pulled upright. What's wrong? I asked. Ominous Wind won't do any damage to Snorlax, but it'll make Spiritomb stronger, Max told her urgently. May's turn to gasp. Snorlax, use a crunch attack. Wait, is that how it works? Is that how it works? Is there like a flash fire, but for ghost type Pokemon? I don't remember, whatever. Nintendo logic. Snorlax, use a crunch attack, Ash shouted at his Pokemon. Snorlax began to move towards Spiritomb, mouth open and teeth gleaming purple. Spiritomb, feint attack, Cynthia retaliated calmly. The ghost type vanished, causing Snorlax to stop and look to see where it had gone. It reappeared directly behind the normal type and ran itself into the small of Snorlax's back. The normal type stumbled onto its belly and rolled over. Snorlax, it's time to rest, Ash said, seeing how little energy it had left. Curse, Spiritomb, Cynthia commanded. A look of pain crossed the ghost type's face that shrouded itself in a gray mist that descended over Snorlax. It hissed in agony, but Snorlax was also beginning to moan in pain as it recovered health began to fade away. Ash gritted his teeth in frustration. While Snorlax was asleep, he couldn't attack. Could he? But then it all suddenly clicked in Ash's mind. Snorlax, you sleep talk! Ash shouted. Snorlax gave a large yawn and suddenly Spiritomb drifted to the ground, eyes closed in sleep. What? Sleep talk again! Snorlax sprang forwards and its fist glowing icily again. It connected hard with the sleeping ghost type, knocking it straight out. Spiritomb is unable to battle, Brock announced, raising his green flag to symbolize Cynthia's loss. The picture of Spiritomb on the scoreboard faded, leaving only an outline of the Pokemon. Unbelievable! Don shouted out. Ash was able to command Snorlax to use a Sleep Talk, a difficult move to pull off successfully, which transformed into a Yawn Attack and then an Ice Punch! For those who don't know, Sleep Talk's a little like a system that any move it uses completely random. It only works if the Pokemon using it is asleep, though. Cynthia recalled her Spiritomb. Good job, she said quietly. I'm sorry that I messed up when I chose your attacks, but that doesn't matter because my next choice will be all I need. Milotic to me!
Boo! You stink!
Thank you, Monokuma. I appreciate it. How are you doing? Alright. And just like that, the beautiful certain light water type sang out as it emerged from one of the frozen rivers. Snorlax, we can do this! Ash told his Pokemon. All we need is one good Ice Punch. Snorlax? The gray mist suddenly tightened over the normal type and then vanished, leaving it immobile on the ground. Snorlax is unable to battle, Brock ruled, raising his red flag. And it looks like Spiritomb's curse finally took its toll on Snorlax, Don told the crowd. Let's see what Ash's second choice will be. Good job, Snorlax, Ash said with a smile as he recalled it. You did some damage to Gastrodon, you took out a Spiritomb. Now, I choose you, Sceptile! I hope you don't think that a type advantage will help you win, he said with a smirk. I have defenses for when I'm at a disadvantage. I wouldn't expect any less, Ash shot back. Am I pressing the button? I'm not pressing the button! I'm now pressing the button! Sceptile, use Bullet Seed! The grass type shot a burst of glowing reed seeds towards Milotic. Milotic, to the pool! Cynthia commanded. Awkwardly at first, her Milotic began to slither towards the water. She gained speed as she moved along the slicks. English is my first language, believe it or not. Milotic began to slither towards the water. She gained speed as she moved along the slick surface, just barely avoiding the Bullet Seed. Keep it up, Sceptile, Ash said. Fire Bullet Seed ahead of Milotic. You won't be able to dodge. Tile, Sceptile responded, shot another burst of seeds from its mouth. The attack landed directly in Milotic's path, a blast knocking her into dry land. Now, use Leaf Blade! Cynthia glared as she looked down into the battlefield. Ash was good. Much better than she had expected. No matter what she tried, he always seemed to be able to outmaneuver her. It's the battlefield, she thought. He's bound to know it reasonably well after all, it is his. But if that were true, then no trainer would ever beat a gym leader. Suddenly, she saw an opening. Just use gun move in any battle is what... You're so right, Monokuma. You're so right! Just gotta use gun! Specifically in all caps, because that's how they did it in the Nintendo Direct. Although I wonder, will she actually use a gun? Let's see here. Let's find out. Milotic, she called. Dive into the water! Last possible moment, her Milotic dived into a hole in the ice created by Sceptile's Bullet Seed. The Leaf Blade barely missed. Now use Ice Beam, she shouted. Does Ice Beam count as a gun? Or gun? Probably not, because there's no, like, gun, but it's an Ice Beam. It's still cool, though. It's a laser. It's an ice laser. Giant honking ice laser. How could it not be cool? Plus, it's an ice type attack. How could it literally not be cool? Milotic's head burst back out of the water. She fired an Ice Beam at point-blank range, as commanded. It smashed into Sceptile, and the grass type was sent flying. Sceptile! Ash yelled in terror. Sceptile! Are you okay? The grass type growled, managed to climb to its knees painfully. Milotic, swim to the center of the pool and use Aqua Ring, followed by Aqua Tail, Cynthia shouted. Milotic acknowledged the command, then dove under the water again. Her sinuous shape was visible beneath the ice as she made her way to the pool in the center of the field. Sceptile, I know you've taken a lot of damage, but that won't stop us. Solar Beam! He told his Pokemon. Yellow orbs on Sceptile's back then began to slowly glow yellow as they absorbed sunlight. The large crackling noise. The ice in the pool was blown skywards by a tornado of revolving water. Aqua Ring. As the shattered ice dropped back down, Milotic's tail glowed a deep blue. Sceptile's about to be knocked out, Ash, Cynthia said with a smirk. Can't possibly overcome a bombardment of ice chunks, and Milotic's recovering health. Or the first of Aqua String, I have to say. Ash gritted his teeth as the Aqua Tail lashed out and connected with the falling ice, sending it soaring at high speed towards Sceptile. The Grass-type Pokemon watched, grimacing, as the ice approached. Then, it felt the orb stop taking in energy. Tile! Sceptile shrieked, and the Solar Beam launched. A powerful, pure white beam shot from Sceptile's mouth, destroyed the approaching ice chunks, smashed through the Aqua Ring, and made a direct hit with Milotic. Look at that power! Dawn gasped. The Solar Beam broke through 2 attacks and scored massive damage against Milotic! Quick attack! Ash shouted. Giga Impact! Cynthia commanded. Sceptile shot forwards at an incredible speed, and Milotic charged out of the water, its head covered in silver aura as she ride in midair towards her opponent. Leaf Blade! No Leaf Blade can stop Milotic's Giga Impact, Cynthia thought. Her eyes widened. At the last possible moment, Sceptile used the speed of the quick attack to dodge Milotic's attack, spin around in midair, and then lashed out with a devastating Leaf Blade that sent Milotic crashing to the ground. Milotic! Cynthia cried out. Finish it with Frenzy Plant! Ash shouted as Sceptile landed. Sceptile roared, eyes glowing green. Enormous spiny roots shot out of the ground and smashed into Milotic, sending her spinning through the air to crash among the rock portions of the battlefield. Milotic is unable to battle, Brock announced. What a move! Dawn cheered. That Frenzy Plant, the most powerful grass attack of all, really shook Milotic up. The Sceptile's definitely looking tired now. We'll have to see how that affects it in the next battle. With a huge pent-up sigh of relief, May relaxed into her chair. She wiped her forehead. Each of Cynthia's Pokemon was more powerful than the last. Only 2 of hers had been knocked out. Though some serious damage had been done to her Gastrodon, but Ash's Snorlax was also out, and Sceptile looked like it was on the point of collapsing. Just have to trust in your Pokemon, Ash, she murmured to herself. Hoping I won't be too disappointed if you lose, though. The girl next to her tugged her arm. May looked over and saw a look of worry on her face. Don't worry, she reassured the girl. I know that Ash can win. I just hope his strategy will work out, that's all. I believe you can do it, and that you can too. The girl smiled and looked back towards the battlefield. Good job, Milotic, Cynthia said, recalling her Pokemon. I won't let you down next time. Now, to me, Roserade! A Roserade announced itself as it stepped daintily forwards to face the exhausted Sceptile as it appeared. Sceptile, return! Ash called. Great job, bud. That ice cream took a lot out of you, though, and so you should rest for later on. In the familiar burst of red light, Charizard emerged. Oh, wait. My note was covering some of the text. Darn. Now, Charizard, I choose you! In the familiar burst of red light, Charizard emerged. It looked and saw the Roserade standing opposite. Charizard's eyes narrowed. The Roserade didn't look very tough, but Charizard could sense that was a powerful combatant. "You ready, Charizard?" Ash asked. Fire-type roared. Oh, do I not have anything? I may not have anything for this one, but you know, that's okay. We'll just use what we'd used before. More swoosh! Into the air, he shouted. Slipping its wings in huge bursts of power, Charizard began to ascend into the sky. Roserade, we can fight past the type disadvantage, Cynthia said calmly. Use Poison Sting! The grass type acknowledged as it shot streams of purple darts towards the flying Charizard. Counter with Flamethrower! Charizard launched a full breath of fiery flames from its mouth just in time. The Poison Sting collided with the Flamethrower, but shot straight through, the Flamethrower only slowing the attack down. Charizard was forced to roll in midair to avoid the attack. The slightly slower Roserade wasn't quite as lucky. It was forced to jump backwards to avoid the Flamethrower, but a few streams of the cut-up fire scored a hit on her arm. Raid! She hissed in anger, glaring up at Charizard. Use a Mega Punch! Ash shouted. Charizard went into a steep dive, its fists glowing white. Secret Power! Cynthia retaliated. Roserade held its 2 arms together and shot out a glimmering white beam. It smashed into Charizard's wing, sending the Pokemon spinning out of control. With a roar of surprise and pain, Charizard barreled deep into the ground, sending a gigantic cloud of dust into the air that hid the Pokemon from sight. Charizard! Ash screamed. May and Max both leapt up from their seats in horror. Charizard! They yelled in perfect timing with Ash. That isn't good, Norman said in a low voice. Charizard had the momentum of the dive behind it, and the spinning only increased the power. Had to have done a lot of damage. It's not over just yet, Annabelle said confidently. How can you say that? Max asked. Charizard was just smashed into the ground. Annabelle then just winked at him. With you been battling for as long as Ash and Charizard have, you're bound to have tricks up your sleeve, she said. I don't know if you saw it, but I sure did. Roserade, Cynthia said, confident that the victory was hers. Use Leaf Storm! The cloud of razor-sharp leaves shot towards the place where Charizard had fallen. All of Ash's supporters watched in horror, Misty and May both closing their eyes to avoid the sight. Flare Blitz! Ash roared. A red glow emanated from the dust cloud, and Charizard burst into view, wreathed in flames. Only his outline visible in a manner similar to when a Pokemon will attack. His eyes changed red, Charizard gave a roar that echoed around the Colosseum, and he launched into a high-powered flight. The leaf storm slammed into the high-temperature flames, but not a single leaf touched his target. Like a sizzling bullet, he struck Roserade dead on. Grass type smashed through several boulders before coming to rest against the boundary wall. Roserade! Cynthia screamed. Wow, is that it? I think that was it. Wow, I was not expecting that to only last like 40 seconds! Whatever, man. Whatever. Whatever, man! Whatever, let's just do this. Alright. Roserade is unable to battle, Brock ruled. The victor of this round is Charizard. And Ash knocks out his third opponent, Dawn shouted into the microphone. Since Cynthia's lost 3 of her Pokemon, we'll take a 10-minute break to allow her to regroup. We'll see you all back here in a couple of minutes. Okay, yay! Halfway done! Halfway through it! That is halfway there! I gotta say, it's a little bit hard to read this. My throat is starting to feel a little tired. I should probably get something to drink. You know what? I'm fine. I'm fine. I can deal with this. This is fine. This is all good. It's fine. Alright, well, anyway. Now that we're on break, though, let's see how everyone's holding up. How'd you do it, Ash? Misty demanded. She, May, Max, Nolan, Annabelle, Professor Oak, Delia, Gary, and the Silent Girl had all rushed down to his training room as soon as the 10-minute break had been announced. How to do what? He asked innocently. How did Charizard not faint when it crashed into the ground like that? I've never seen a Pokemon take damage like that and manage to keep on battling, let alone use a Flare Blitz, which hurts it even more! Ash shrugged. I wasn't worried about Flare Blitz because of the training Charizard's done. I wasn't worried about Flare Blitz because of the training Charizard's done. When I first called Liza to tell her I'd need Charizard to battle Cynthia, she told me how Charizard recently learned that move. I asked her if she could get Charizard to use that attack as often as possible so that the recoil effect wouldn't damage it as much. It's just a fire-type version of Takedown and Volt Tackle, and Pikachu isn't affected by recoil anymore, so I figured that with practice it would be the same for Charizard. And the crash? Max asked. Ash smiled, his eyes lighting up in memory. May felt her stomach give a sudden lurch and looked down in worry. She could possibly be hungry, could she? When I fought in the Johto League, Ash said, I eventually lost against a trainer called Harrison. Charizard used a seismic toss on his Blaziken. It would have knocked Blaziken out too if it hadn't used a flamethrower to soften its landing and lessen the impact. Annabelle smiled. She had been right. Charizard used a flamethrower to soften his landing just before he hit, right? She asked. And the spinning motion meant that more of the ground was hit with more power so that it would be as soft as possible. That's right, he said with a nod. And then he laughed. I felt the uncomfortable lurch again. After all these years of training, me and my Pokemon know each other through and through. Barely even need to communicate with words anymore. It's like someone else I know, he said with a smile at Annabelle. At once, the lurching in my stomach transferred to her heart. She grabbed at it a little unsteadily, hoping nobody else would notice her sudden movement. What's wrong with her? The 10-minute break is up, they suddenly heard Dawn say over the loudspeaker. Audience, back to your seats. Champion Cynthia and Challenger Ash, you are requested to return to the battlefield. Ash stood up and stretched. Sure feeling good about this, he said. 3 of Cynthia's Pokemon are down, and I still have 5 of my 6 left. I'll see you guys after the match. May watched as Ash turned and walked out towards the Coliseum, while everyone else filled past her to reach the audience section again. She suddenly felt someone clutch her hand and turned to see the silent girl trying to motion in the direction that everyone else had gone. Thanks, she sighed, and began to walk slowly back to her seat, the girl following behind with a very puzzled look on her face. No sooner had she sat down than she felt Annabelle tapping her on the back. Are you all right, May? She asked. You're looking a little sad. I'm fine, she sighed. Annabelle looked at her and gave a fleeting smile. I'm sure that I'm not the only one who knows that Ash is wearing a half ribbon around his neck, he said to May. Although May's expression didn't change, her lurching heart suddenly seemed to feel lighter. Trainers, it's time to choose your next Pokemon, Dawn announced. Gastrodon, to me! Cynthia called. Her Pokemon appeared for the second time. Ash smiled. Latias, I choose you, he shouted, accompanied by a gasp of surprise that arose from nearly every throat in the Coliseum. The silent girl next to May suddenly shimmered in a silver light. Moments later, Latias had appeared. She looked over to May. Best, May whispered, giving the legendary Pokemon a thumbs up. Latias chirped and floated down to the stand in front of Ash. Latias, eh? Cynthia said to herself. I don't even consider that he could be using a legendary. She berated herself quietly for a few more seconds before looking back out over the battlefield. Gastrodon, use Rain Dance, she commanded. Clouds gathered, and slowly rain began to fall. Cynthia smiled. With the Rain Dance in effect, Gastrodon could move about much more easily on land. But the rain stopped. Gastrodon, what's wrong? She called out in worry. Her Pokemon could only look about itself in a bewildered manner. Try Rain Dance again, she ordered. Again, her Gastrodon used the attack. The rain stopped after only a few seconds. Ash looked around, confused. The rain clouds were still there, but no rain was falling. Doesn't make sense, he thought. What could stop a rain dance? He frowned as he looked across at Cynthia, unwilling to attack while her Pokemon's abilities were prevented from being used. Latias suddenly chirped anxiously, pointing her arms towards the sky that lay beyond Cynthia, beyond the Coliseum. One small patch of sky was completely clear. Ash could see the sun sparkling, and it was weaving towards the Coliseum emphatically. He rubbed his eyes. The moving patch of sunlight continued to soar through the clouds in a zigzag pattern. He heard a roar off in the distance, and cold the sound of it. The crowd had also heard and began to whisper in confusion as they looked around themselves for the source. A girl suddenly screamed, pointing up at the moving patch of sunlight. As one, the crowd followed her gaze. Cynthia felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up as she slowly turned around. Flying at a very low altitude, a Rayquaza appeared over the edge of the Coliseum, an unusual glint in its eyes. The crowd went numb at the sight of the rare and powerful Pokemon. The Rayquaza looked around at the spectacle in front of it with a confused expression. It took in the huge number of people gathered, the battlefield, and the 2 Pokemon who stood on it. And with a demonic roar of anger, the Rayquaza blessed a Hyper Beam into the Coliseum. Okay, so, I guess, does that count as a gun? I think that might basically count as gun, in this case. Oh boy. Okay, well, of course that chapter took longer because that was a battle. Gosh dang it. Ugh. Ah, crazy, right? So Rayquaza makes an appearance. What could this mean? What could this mean indeed? Well, I guess we'll have to see. Chapter 6. Mission. The man leaned casually back in his chair. His back to the office doors. His back to the office door as he looked through a gigantic window out over the mountainous landscape. There was a slight knock on the door, barely audible. Enter, called, without turning around. Two people stepped nervously into the room. A woman with long orange hair and a man with short green hair. Both wore black uniforms. They waited for several moments, but the man who had called them in gave no inclination of turning around. You asked to see us, boss? The man with the green hair asked awkwardly. Slowly, the boss turned around. Both the man and woman gulped inadvertently. He was a gigantic person, tall and broad-shouldered, but without a trace of fat on him. He cast a forbidding aura everywhere he went. Here in his headquarters, he was at his most dangerous. The man and the woman both knew that on a whim they could be promoted or killed. You have been with Team Rocket for a while, haven't you? The boss said quietly. It's not a question that needed an answer. I've been looking through the records of my employees for a while, he continued. Overall, your work has been satisfactory. There have been a few incidents, for lack of a better word, but you two have proven yourselves loyal. Thank you, boss, the woman began, but raised a finger for silence. It's just like the breeding center 10 years ago, and that disaster in the Whirl Islands 8 years ago never leave the records. You recall what happened? Both the man and woman nodded dumbly. The future had been bright. They were high up in the organization and role models to many of the newer recruits. Then had come the Whirl Islands. The legendary Pokémon had been within their grasp, but the last second was set free by a couple of kids. That left them humiliated and discredited. If it hadn't been for Professor Namba's belief in their work, they might have been removed from the organization entirely. As it was, they were only demoted a few positions and assigned to work under Professor Namba permanently. He had given them a second chance when it came to capturing legendary Pokémon. Only a year after the Whirl Islands, they had been sent to the Seti Islands. Professor Namba had calculated the migration of another legendary Pokémon, done painstakingly over years and years from nothing more than eyewitness accounts. They had tricked a Moltres fanatic, Silver, who wanted to battle the legendary Pokémon into leading them to the top of Mount Ember, an active volcano. There, they had almost captured the legendary bird when Silver had been joined by one of the kids that had stopped them in the Whirl Islands. Moltres escaped, and they had been forced to flee the island before the volcano erupted, only narrowly escaping with their lives. After that, even Namba discredited them, and they had done lowly grunt work for the organization ever since. The Whirl Islands and Mount Ember were not just black marks for yourselves, the boss said calmly. They were marks of failure on the whole organization. The two of you alone have caused irreparable damage to our reputation around the world. The man and woman looked at each other in fear. What was going to happen? However, those mishaps aside, your work has been impeccable. That is why I'm restoring you back to the ranks you had before the Whirl Islands. The boss! The man gasped out gratefully. The boss ignored him. Before I do that, however, there is one task that you must complete. Whatever it is, we'll do it, the woman said without hesitation. The boss smiled slowly. It froze their hearts. He whispered civilly. Very good. I was looking through my records and have found a partnership that, unlike you, who has done nothing but cost me money for 10 years now, they haven't brought in a single Pokemon save the worthless Togepi. They claim that they are chasing down an extremely rare and powerful Pikachu, as if I couldn't just go outside with a Pokeball and Thunderstone to get myself a more powerful Raichu. Their costs are exorbitant. The three of them alone spend a quarter of our income every year. What do you want us to do with them, boss? The man asked. The The boss's eyes glinted. I want them dead! He snapped, his fist crashing down hard on the table. In the far corner, a Persian cowered at the sight of his wrath. Dead? The woman repeated incredulously. Do you have a hearing problem? The boss asked impatiently. I want them dead. Not humiliated, not discredited, not demoted. Stone cold dead. Clear? Yes, boss, the man and the woman both shouted, snapping to attention. Good, he said, swiveling his chair back to the window. Last I heard, they were in the vicinity of Viridian City. Now, get out of my sight. The man and the woman both sprinted to the doors, wrenching them open as fast as they dared, but closing them as softly as was humanly possible. They looked at each other, shock reflected in their pupils. I don't think I can become a murderer. The man said. Neither do I, Butch, the woman said as she began to walk slowly down the halls. I've always hated that arrogant Jessie, but not to the point where I would kill her. I mean, sure, I'd want her out of my life, but dead? I don't know, Cassidy, Butch said almost sadly as he caught up to her. I'd never really had anything against James, apart from the fact that he always screws up my name. I mean, sure, he tries to usurp us so he'll get the credit, but I've got the feeling it's mainly because of Jessie egging him on. I can't kill the guy. You don't have a choice, Butch, Cassidy said quietly. It's either their lives or ours, and I prefer to stay alive for as long as possible. She sighed and grabbed a broom from a nearby closet. Come on, she said. We've got one last word detail. We've got one last word detail shift to do before we head out. Where are we scheduled to clean? Bush took a look at his pocket calendar. Professor Nama's lab, he said. Okay. So, quick disclaimer, some of these voices may actually end up being wrong because I'm not familiar with some of these characters. Some of these characters appeared after past the part where I was able to watch. So please bear with me. Smile. So, you two are about to be promoted again from what I hear, eh? Asked Namba. Yes, Professor Numbo, we have a— It's Namba! He shrieked. When will you get it right? Why don't people ever learn a name anymore? It's completely disrespectful, don't you agree, Boff? Actually, Professor Namba, my name is Butch, said Cassie with— I don't care what your name is! Namba screamed, beside himself with rage. If I ask you to agree with me, you agree with me, got it? Yes, Professor Namba, Butch replied sullenly. Abruptly, Namba's temper seized. Good. Now, the two of you will be pleased to know that once you have been promoted back, you'll be working for me again. Butch and Cassidy both gave silent groans. You will also be pleased to know two other important things. My research on the Pokerus has finally been completed, even without the cooperation of that numbskull oak. Also, we have finally managed to capture Silver! Butch jerked his head upright in shock. Silver? Do you have a hearing problem? Namba demanded, echoing the boss. How did you do it, Professor? Cassidy asked quickly. Namba snorted. With some amazing skill and bribery, he said. If those kids decide to interfere again, we'll have Silver to ward them off. Good thing we do, too. I hear one of them is now a master. A master? Cassidy gasped with a stunned expression. Namba gave a suspicious look towards her ears. Aren't you finished yet? He suddenly demanded. This floor looks spotless. Get out, go! I have work to do and you aren't privy to it yet. Reluctantly, Cassidy and Butch both saluted and exited the office. Caved being stood in the shadow of the building's flag spire, many stories above the ground. Even though it was broad daylight, Yuri was hidden from view of pedestrians or office workers. He groaned mentally and sat down in the shade, head buzzing with tiredness. Despite trying to become nocturnal for over 7 years now, he still had a lot of difficulty falling asleep in the daytime. He hated stealing, especially human food, but he did it to survive. A few fruit trees grew in the city, but he lived there because it was the safest place for him to be. If they somehow found those hidden memories and looked for him again, he was certain they would search the desolate wilderness, not a bustling urban. The city made him sick. How can they live with each other, he wondered. They steal, they fight, they hurt. The street bully is no different from the shopkeeper who raises his prices for the poor. I steal to survive. They steal for gain. He sighed and shook his tired head. Humans have a choice in life. A choice that was never given to me. Yet they use that choice for evil purposes, just to hurt each other. Why? He groaned again as the wind ruffling his long cape. He looked out over Viridian City and felt a sudden spear of pain in his chest. He shook his head to clear it and sealed his mind, fighting against the unexpected lancing. He didn't know why it started yesterday, but since it began, he experienced it every couple of hours. Almost against his will, he looked to the west. For some strange reason, ever since the pain began, he felt drawn to Tojo Falls, as if he needed to go there. Later, he decided. Maybe it was time to move to another town again. For the last 7 years, he had been on the move from town to town, visiting distant places in Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Rayan, and even Fjord. He never stayed at any one place for longer than a month. It's too risky that he decided, his appearance reported. And humans knew they were being robbed with unusually sharp eyes. Another wave of drowsiness washed over him as he leaned his head forwards until his chin touched his chest. He closed his eyes and finally felt the warm embrace of sleep. Tonight, he decided before dropping off, I'll move on to Cerulean City. Well, looks like the plot is thickening a little bit, huh? Just a little bit. Just a little beetle bit. You know, I wonder where would be a good place to end with. I'm not saying that I'm going to end now, but actually, no, I have an idea where I might want to end. Actually, it's still in a few more chapters, but I feel like that could be a pretty good place to do it. But yeah, so the plot is thickening. So Team Rocket is at it again somehow. Whatever they're up to, I have no idea. And I'm totally not just lying to you because I read the story before. So I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Anyway. Chapter 7, Escape. The silence was complete. The entire Colosseum stared completely awestruck at the legendary Rayquaza that suddenly appeared. It stared down at them, a confused look on its face, its eyes glinting unusual. It gave a small, imperceptible shudder, noticed by only a few people. Then, with a roar of rage, it reared back and fired a devastating hyper at the Colosseum. The attack tore across the field, scoring a deep gouge. The crowd descended into chaos, every human trying to be the first to leave the Colosseum in panic. The Rayquaza dove into the open-aired building and swooped down low over the crowd, instilling even more fear into them. Only Ash's supporters had remained where they were, standing in stunned disbelief as the Rayquaza released another unprovoked attack, this time knocking down several of the trees in the battle. Annabelle gave a scream of fear as a man in the row behind her stumbled and slammed into her balance. She toppled over and crashed into May, sending both of them over the edge of the barrier and plummeting to the field below. Like lightning, Brandon and Lucy both lunged forwards and seized the two girls, pulling them up to safety. Annabelle, are you okay? Brandon asked in concern. She stared out at him, eyes glazed for a moment. Isn't it nice to see Brandon not arrested? She shook her head, fighting back the fear, and gave a silent nod. May? Lucy asked, saying as little as ever. I'm okay too, May gasped, her hand over her pounding chest. Thanks. Lucy nodded and turned to Brandon. He eyed her with a grim smile on his face and withdrew the Pokémons. The Rayquaza turned and floated over the center of the battlefield. It shuddered again and blindly shot down a third Hyper Beam. Latias gave out a scream of fright to head directly towards her. Latias! Ash screamed. A huge cloud of dust and wind swarmed past him from the resulting explosion. Pikachu was forced to hold onto Ash's jacket as tightly as it could, and Ash felt himself sliding backwards. A dull light began to shine through the dust as it cleared it from the window. Ash squinted, rubbing his eyes to free them from grit. He suddenly realized that Latias protected herself by using the safeguard, although the impact from the Hyper Beam still managed to force her backwards. Pikachu, Ash said, turning to face his friend who had only just hauled himself back on Ash's shoulder. Get to the Pokemon field where we trained today. The rest of my Pokemon are in there. I need all of them, even the 30 Tauros, to get here now. Pika! Pikachu rejected the idea, cheeks sizzling with energy as he glared up at Rayquaza, once again flying low to the ground, roaring angrily. Ash winced as the Rayquaza's tail caught one woman, sending her flying through the air, screaming in terror. Just do it! Ash yelled. I need all of them to help me hold off Rayquaza so that everyone can escape. You can help me when you get back, but you're the only Pokemon I have on me right now who can get there and back without being seen. Pikachu looked up at his trainer for a moment. Ash's expression gave no room for argument. Pikachu nodded and sprang off of Ash's shoulder, racing for the tunnel that would lead him out of the Coliseum towards the training field. Ash glared up at the Rayquaza. Rayquaza, I challenge you! He shouted into the sky. As the Rayquaza turned around to look for this new shout, Ash saw something that made his stomach clench. On the left arm of the Rayquaza was a horrible burn that looked as if it had been made very recently. Gallade, Charizard, Sceptile, I choose you! He shouted, throwing 3 Pokeballs into the air. On cue, the 3 of them burst out of their Pokeballs to land alongside Latias, Sceptile still breathing a little heavily. The Rayquaza glared down at them all, rage and pain in his eyes, along with something else, something that Ash couldn't identify. Behind the Rayquaza, Ash saw 2 more flashes of red light, and realized that Cynthia had sent out her 2 remaining Pokemon to battle as well. The Rayquaza swooped closer down to Ash and his Pokemon, and wheeled and climbed quickly. It was barely more than a dot in the sky when Hyper Beams began to fall to the ground with rain. Several more gouges were torn into the battlefield. Holes were blown through the Coliseum's walls. The faint, sickly smell of smoke reached Ash's nostrils, and with a mixture of sadness and horror, he realized that his Coliseum was burning. He climbed down off the platform and walked onto the battlefield. He tapped Charizard on the back and motioned to him. Charizard gave a nod, and Ash climbed onto his back. Into the air, Charizard! He shouted. With sweeping strokes of his wings, the fire type lifted off the ground. Ash fished out his Pokédex and flipped it over to the Rayquaza, who was still hovering high in the sky over the Coliseum. He knew that it was a legendary Pokemon. That was all he knew. Frowning, he manipulated the Pokédex to see what kind of attacks would be best against Rayquaza. Fantastic, he thought. Rayquaza's only weak against Dragon and Ice, because that means Charizard and Latias are going to have to use their Dragon Breath, and that Sceptile won't do much. Ash! He heard Brock call. He turned and saw the breeder hurrying towards him, Dawn close behind. Don't tell me you're going to battle Rayquaza! Please don't tell me that! He said as he drew close. Somehow, Ash managed to give him a grin. Guess I better not say anything then, he said, trying and failing to make a joke. Look out! Dawn screamed. Ash turned back to the sky and saw Hyper Beam roaring towards him. Charizard, use Flamethrower! Gallade Psychic! Charizard's Flamethrower collided with the Hyper Beam. Gallade quickly uses Psychic to strengthen the fire attack long enough to cause a harmless explosion in the air. Then I'm battling too, Brock said, grabbing one of his Pokeballs, face grim. Ash leaned over Charizard's back and caught his arm. No, he said. You get out of here. Dawn too. All those people who were in the audience must be scared out of their minds. I need you two to try to calm them down so that there aren't any accidents. Lucario Force Palm! They heard Cynthia shout faintly from the other side of the battlefield, distracting the Rayquaza for a moment. You can't battle this by yourself! Brock shouted. I'm not battling! Ash shouted right back, his nerves fraying to the breaking point. I'm just holding it off until everyone gets to safety. You just got to get my other Pokemon. We can hold Rayquaza off with Cynthia attacking from the other side. I need you and Dawn away from here. Brock gazed into his friend's eyes for a moment. They were tight with fear. Brock knew that Ash would stay until he knew for sure that everyone had. He nodded. Come on, Dawn, he said. Are you mad? Dawn screamed at him. You can't leave him here alone! He's not alone! Brock snapped back. He's got all of his Pokemon and Cynthia to back him up. We can't help him! What we need to do is get everyone into safety. Ash! May shouted, running up to the three of them. The other 6 Frontier Brains, Max, Misty, and Gary, close behind. Get away, May, Ash said, not looking at her. What? May asked as she came to a dead halt, not believing what she had just heard. I said get away. You need to get to safety. I can't stall Rayquaza if I know that you or any of my friends are in danger. I'm not going anywhere, May snapped at him, hands on her hips. I'm not leaving one of my best friends about a legendary Pokemon by himself. Ash swore and looked around at the sky, which was beginning to darken with smoke, not answering her. It only took him a moment to find what he was looking for. Pidgeot! He shouted. A hawk-like Pokemon somehow managed to hear him over the noise of Rayquaza battling Cynthia's Lucario and Garchomp simultaneously. It dove down like a bullet. Ash tossed up a Pokeball, and Pidgeot immediately understood. It flew directly for the Pokeball, capturing itself. The Pokeball dropped back to Earth, and Ash caught it. He immediately set his old friend back out in a beam of red light. Pidgeot, take May back to Pallet Town, he said, not looking at her. May gasped, and Ash's chest suddenly felt as if it was caught in spikes. Take her to the lab. Make sure she's safe. Go! His voice broke. Go! The flying type acknowledged. I still can't do that, I'm sorry. It swooped down towards May and grasped her arm delicately with its talons. What? Ash, no! Don't do this! May screamed. Don't do this to me! Go! Ash shouted to Pidgeot. In a trice, the bird Pokemon accelerated and was gone. Pika! He heard Pikachu calling from the snow. Over here, he called back, running towards the sound. In a moment, all his Pokemon were crowding below him. Tauros, I want all of you to take one person here and take them back to Pallet Town. Try and find Professor Oak and Mom on the way out. Ash, what are you doing? Misty asked quietly. He ignored her. Boarfish, Muck, Sceptile, Swellow, Noctowl, Bayleaf, Heracross, Ambipom, Staraptor, Tolkol, Donphan, Groddle, all of you are going with them. They all gave various shouts of surprise. We're not going without you, Max shouted out at him. Yes, you are! Ash snapped back, tired of his arguing now. Max opened his mouth again, but Brock clamped his hand over it and dragged him onto the nearest Tauros before climbing onto one himself. Dawn looked around the group nervously. She shrugged and climbed onto another, followed by Misty. Tauros, go! Ash shouted. Slowly, 23 of the herd began to canter towards the exit. He looked down at the Pokemon he had told to go with them. Not a one had moved a muscle. Don't you understand? He asked. I need all of you to protect them in case Rayquaza gives chase, and to make sure that they're all okay when they get back to Pallet. Sceptile looked up at his trainer. He hated that he knew what he had to, but he did it nonetheless. He followed his trainer's orders, trailing the Tauros. The other Pokemon looked around unsure, but the respect that Sceptile commanded in all of them forced them to move. Slowly, sadly, and against everything in their hearts, each and every one of the Pokemon that Ash had ordered to move forward followed Sceptile's lead. Soon, only Ash, Gary, 7 Tauros, Frontier Brains, and the rest of Ash's Pokemon were left. Ash looked back over towards Cynthia. It was difficult to tell through the smoke, but it looked as if she was losing. Badly. Sure hope you know what you're doing, Ash, Gary said quietly, also looking towards Cynthia. You should have gone with everyone else, Ash responded. Gary gave a snort. Every time you win a championship, I bring you back to Earth by beating you, Gary said. I figured that you could use some of that strength now. Ash thought about arguing the point, but gave in. In the end, he was glad to have Gary's support. We aren't going either, Tucker said, stepping towards an extravagant costume. And also not arrested and evil, which is nice. Why not? Ash asked. We're Frontier Brains 2, Brandon said, moving to stand at Tucker's side. We never leave one of our own behind. Besides, if you're battling a legendary, you may need 1 or 2 on your side. At this, Ash smiled. Garchomp! They heard Cynthia scream. Looks like it's time for the main event. Oi! Fredham remarked as the Rayquaza turned to face them all. Ash quickly turned to his remaining water units. Angler, Totodile, I need both of you to try to put out the fires. Use your water guns to do it. Oh hey, look! Guns! Totodile grinned toothfully, dancing from foot to foot. It raised off for the closest fire. Kingler falling close behind. Charizard, Glalie, Gallade, Pikachu, Cyndaquil, Latias, get ready to fight, Ash said grimly. Go, my friends, Metagross, Alakazam, Espeon, Annabelle called. Regice, Registeel, I need your assistance, Brandon shouted. Swampert, Arcanine, it's time, Tucker said, releasing his two. Milotic, Piloswine, I choose you, Lucy called out. Not Cindy, this is not... Face Crush, anyway. Metacham, let's go, Greta yelled. Rhydon, Golduck, Manectric, battle, Nolan shouted. And Blastoise, I choose you, Gary shouted. For the roar of surprise at the sudden number of Pokemon facing it, the Rayquaza hovered uncertain. It shuddered, and for the third time, Ash caught sight of the movement. Then, moving into a speedy dive, the Rayquaza shot downward, releasing a powerful Dragon Pulse towards the trainers that stood against it. Oh boy! Okay, I just gotta say that I was starting to lose a little bit of patience there, where they're just calling all their Pokemon. I was like, okay, come on. Could you just like summarize that in like a paragraph or something? Oi. Oh well. I guess maybe they just wanted to have and do their like special callouts or something, but I don't know, man. But regardless, we're done with that, so we're good. We're good. All right. Chapter 8. Fire. I struggled as hard as she could against Pidgeot's grip. Let me down, Pidgeot! She shouted. Pidgeot! The bird Pokemon refused, shaking its beautiful head from side to side. You have to take me back, she pleaded. I can't leave all my friends behind! In response, Pidgeot wheeled and began to fly towards the Colosseum. May sighed with relief. Pidgeot was taking her back. Well, gee, that was easy. If only Ash thought of that. Below, heading in the direction of Pallet, she suddenly saw a crowd of Tauros and an assorted mix of other Pokemon. She could see Max, Misty, Brock, Dawn, Delia, Professor Oak, Gorman, Caroline, and 3 people she didn't know clinging tightly to the Tauros that they were riding on. She sighed again. This time she was ready to. Pidgeot turned again and headed back to Pallet, far stricken slowly Tauros. Why did you do it, Ash? She whispered to herself. Why did you have to send everyone to Pallet and stay behind? She looked down at the half ribbon she usually wore as a necklace under her shirt. A confusing jumble of emotions began to cut her. Deep within, she realized that Ash had forced them all away and cared about them. She knew that he wouldn't be able to battle Rayquaza for long if he was distracted by work. Please be okay, Ash, she whispered. I promise I won't be mad at you, just come home safe. Pidgeot stopped suddenly in midair. May gave a little shriek as she felt herself swing forwards in the air. Pidgeot held her safe. What was that for? She shouted up angrily. Pidgeot! Pidgeot responded, sounding almost in shock. May followed Pidgeot's gaze and gasped. Pidgeot, turn around, she ordered. Got to tell the others! Cynthia watched bitterly as the Rayquaza turned to face the 7 Frontier Brains and the young professor, grinding her fist into her palm in anger and helplessness. All of her Pokemon were out of the fight, and there was nothing more that she could do. She had bought Ash the time she needed to make sure that everyone got away safely. Now it was time for her, too. Ash turned to his 7 remaining Tauros. Head back to Pallet Town, he told them. Ray and her parents may have been in the crowd today, and they might need a ride back. As the Tauros stampeded off, Ash clutched the half ribbon he wore as a pendant. Hope you understand why I had to force you to go, he thought quietly. He felt his emotions begin to well up again. He was barely able to force them down. He needed to focus on the battle. The Rayquaza roared, and Ash looked up to see a massive Dragon Pulse roar down to meet them. Charizard, Cyndaquil, Flamethrower! Arcanine, use your Fire Blast! Tucker roared out. Charizard and Cyndaquil both shot forth a long stream of fire. Arcanine's star-shaped Fire Blast wrapped around and the 3 melded attacks shattered, burst apart the Rayquaza's powerful Dragon Pulse. Excellent! Tucker shouted. Now Swampert, go after Totodile and Kingler. Go after Totodile and Kingler. They'll need your Water Pulse. Sorry, that was awkwardly punctuated. I thought they were part of the same sentence there. The Swampert nodded and ran off on all fours in the direction that Totodile and Kingler would take. Regice, use your Ice Beam! Brandon told his Pokemon. Piloswine, Milotic, you too! Lucy ordered. Glalie, Icy Wind! The 3 separate Ice Beams shot up into the sky, sped up by the Icy Wind, and struck Rayquaza. One in the chest, one in the tail, and one on the arm. Rayquaza roared in pain and reeled upwards as the Icy Wind then slammed into it, pellets of ice smashing against its entire body. Rayquaza dove downwards, hatred in its eyes, and set up a barrage of Hyper Beams. Latias, Safeguard! Charizard, Cyndaquil, use Flamethrower against those Hyper Beams! Pikachu, Thunderbolt them back! Glalie, aim your Ice Beam at Rayquaza, and Glade, use your Psychic to guide it! Ash shouted. That was a lot of things to shout. Piloswine, Milotic, use your Ice Beams too! Lucy told her Pokemon. Registeel, stand in front of the attacking Pokemon and use Iron Defense to shield them. Regice, fight back Hyper Beam with one of your own. Brandon commanded. Metagross, guide Piloswine's and Milotic's Ice Beams with your Psychic. Espeon, use Zep Cannon. And he didn't mention that was Annabelle speaking there, but okay. But yeah, we know it was Annabelle that time, so sure. Manectric, thunder those Hyper Beams away, Nolan called. Blastoise, Hydro Cannon, Gary ordered. So many orders, man! Look, I'm sorry, but it's just a little much sometimes. The medley of attacks burst skyward. They collided with the many Hyper Beams, and the power of colliding attacks caused a series of explosions, the smoke from which blanketed the Rayquaza from view. Some of the Hyper Beams broke through and hurtled towards the trainers. Registeel used its Iron Defense to absorb the attacks and protect the Pokemon and trainer spawns. Latias did the same for Safeguard. Glade and Metagross worked together to coax the Ice Beams through the thick smoke. Although they couldn't see the Rayquaza, they could sense its position with their Psychic. They were rewarded by hearing shrieks of pain and rage from the Rayquaza. And then, it was gone. The 8 trainers and their Pokemon stood stock still, listening intently. Charizard, blow the smoke away! Ash ordered. Charizard reared backwards, began to flap his wings as hard as he could. The smoke cleared slowly. They all looked around in confusion. The Rayquaza had vanished. Gary sighed in relief and was about to speak, when the smell of burning once again flew in their direction. Gotta get out of here, Brandon stated, calling his Regigites into the steel. The Coliseum is burning rapidly. I don't think the water types will be able to stop it. Kingler and Totodile! Ash shouted in panic, running off quickly in the direction of Gon, Pikachu on his shoulder. Ash! Gary yelled, moving to go after him. No! Tucker grabbed Gary's arm. It's too dangerous. I'll go after him. I need to find my Swampert anyways. Gary scowled back. I have Blastoise. It'll take long for Hydro to put out the fire. He turned to the rest of the Frontier Prince. You guys should all clear out. Wait for us outside the Coliseum. There's no need to risk any more lives. Annabelle opened her mouth to protest. Brandon beat her to it. He's right, he said, looking at Annabelle, going in front of Lucy. We'd only get in the way. None of our Pokemon can take that heat. Lucy deliberately recalled her Milotic, but Brandon shook his head at her expression. There is no water inside the Coliseum always, he stated. Milotic would not be able to move. I'm not going without Ash, Annabelle said firmly. Brandon grabbed her around the waist and threw her over her shoulder. Do not let your personal feelings for the boy get in the way of your reason, he snapped, as Annabelle struggled to break free. She stopped moving, although small red patches appeared on her cheeks. Greta, Nolan, Lucy, recall your Pokemon. We need to go. He walked towards the exit, not looking back. Nolan looked at the two women and gave a small sigh. He recalled his 3 Pokemon and began to follow Brandon. Greta and Lucy both scowled their disagreement but followed suit and left the battlefield. Annabelle's Metagross, Alakazam, and Espeon behind them. Gary looked over at Ash's Pokemon. Go with them, he said quietly. There's nothing more any of you can do. Reluctantly, all save Gallade, Latias, and Charizard followed the Frontier Brains. Not even checking to see if Ash's Pokemon were obeying, Gary and Tucker raced off after Ash. Gallade, Charizard, and Latias looked at Gary and Tucker, at the retreating Pokemon and Frontier Brains, and finally at each other. Without a sound, they took off in hot pursuit of Gary and Tucker. As soon as they reached the hallways behind the battlefield, just barely behind the Professor and the Frontier Brain, they found themselves surrounded in a thick blanket of smoke. Blastoise, use your rapid spin to clear the smoke away! Gary called to his Pokemon. Blast! The water type acknowledged and withdrew into the shell, rotating rapidly. The smoke quickly cleared, and Gary, Tucker, and Gallade raced into the depths of the building. Charizard roared in frustration. It's too big to go inside. Latias tapped him on the shoulder and motioned for him to follow. She took off into the sky and flew over the walls, landing just inside the training room. Charizard was close behind and let out a roar of terror. The house that Ash had been living in recently was consumed in flames. And through the window, Charizard could see Ash laying on the ground, apparently unconscious, holding the egg canister in his arms. Totodile was dancing around him in panic, as Kingler tried desperately to put out the fire in his front. Latias flew to the other side of the building and saw Tucker Swampert lobbing a mixture of water pulse and water guns at the house, trying to put out the fire from the outside even as Kingler worked on the inside. She found Pikachu standing nervously next to Swampert, watching the efforts from fear in his eyes. It was then that Charizard decided to do something extremely drastic. He climbed in the air quickly, trying to get as much height as he dared. He tilted himself into a steep, fast dive, aiming for the room next to the one that he knew first. Gary and Tucker reached an intersection in the building. The lights above them crackled menacingly. The fuses were beginning to blow from the heat and smoke. Gallade! Gary shouted. Any sense for Ashes? Gallade closed his eyes and reached out with Psychic, programming every inch of the Coliseum grounds, trying to find Ash and best friend. His eyes snapped open. Arr! He nodded and ran off in the direction of the sense. Gary and Tucker close behind. Could you sense Swampert? Tucker asked as he ran. Gallade nodded and motioned towards it again with his blades. They followed Gallade and ran through several clouds of smoke. They were stopped by a small fire at one spot, but it was quickly extinguished with a hydro pump. At last, they burst out into clear air, facing the training field from the flaming house. At that exact moment, Charizard slammed headfirst through the roof of the house, breaking into the walls below. Ash! Gary yelled, seeing his friend lying motionless through the window. Swampert! Tucker called out, and he was roared by a full-throated roar from the other side of the house. He ran to the back, right as Pikachu came springing around to the front. Blastoise, use Hydro Cannon to fight the fire on this side of the building, Gary ordered. He turned to Gallade. Charizard remained able to get out with Ash. Can you use your Psycho Cutter to open up the doorways? Gallade! Gallade responded, leaving forwards with its blades glowing rapidly. Seconds later, the doorway had been widened considerably, and Gallade had vanished inside. Smoke poured out of the new exit, and Gary waited, beside himself with worry about his friend. At last, a shape emerged from the smoke. It was Kingler, still spraying water wherever it could. A moment later, it was followed by Gallade, who had led a very downcast Totodile. At last, Charizard, carrying Ash limply in his arms, hot tears coursing down the part of his cheeks. Ash! Gary shouted, springing forwards as Charizard laid the trainer on the ground, his arms still wrapped around the egg canister. Pikachu! Pikachu cried out anxiously, rushing to his trainer. Come on, Ash, Gary said, pumping his chest as he began CPR. Where's your fighting spirit? Don't give up on us now. Don't you dare just give up. Pikachu! This Pokemon cried, his tears melding with Charizard to the ground. Gary worked for several minutes, but Ash gave no response. He looked up at the assembled Pokemon with a look of sadness on his face. I think he's gone, he whispered. Charizard roared up at the sky in grief as Kingler and Totodile both began to shed their own tears. Latias came floating around from the other side of the building, where he had stayed with Tucker and Swampert. As soon as she saw Ash's body on the ground and the sadness of the Pokemon surrounding him, she understood. Her own keening for the song of loss. Pikachu cried as he shook Ash, refusing to believe what had happened. Gary picked up the electric type and stood up slowly, the grief evident on his face. It's no good, Pikachu, Gary said quietly. He's gone. Pikachu! Pikachu screamed. Electricity burst from his body in a magnificent beam of light that shot skywards, electrocuting everything nearby. With a scream of pain, Ash lurched upright, coughing up thick lumps of inhaled smoke. Yeah, like they would really do it. This is like Goofy from KH2 all over again. Like, gee, Your Majesty, I get bumped on the head all the time. Ash! Gary shouted. Pikachu! Pikachu rejoiced, throwing himself on oars onto his trainer. What? Ash managed to gasp out, hacking up another lump of solidified soot. He tried to stand up, but was pushed back down by Gary. Easy, Ash, don't overexert yourself. I've only just been revived. What happened? Ash insisted, although he allowed Gary to force him back into the sitting position. You were caught in a house that was burning, Gary said simply. Passed out from the smoke, and probably would have died if your Pokemon had gone in to save you. Ash lay on his back weakly, head spinning as he tried to absorb what was being said. He was able to grasp onto only one thing, however. My Pokemon saved me? To which Gary nodded. Yep. Angler tried to put out the fire, and Charizard used the strongest takedown I've ever seen to break into the house. Gallade cut open the doorway so that Charizard could bring you out, and Pikachu revived you with a Thunderbolt. No! Totodile muttered sadly, looking around the ground utterly woebegone. He knew that he had done nothing to help. Ash chuckled painfully through his blistered throat and reached out to stroke his head. Thanks for looking after me while everyone else tried to reach me, Totodile. Totodile smiled, jumping onto Ash in his gratitude for that comment. Gary! Baker Tucker shout from behind the house. Womper's almost got everything under control over here. Everything's on your side. We got Ash! Gary shouted back. Going to be okay. Just needs a little rest. They then heard Tucker give a sigh of relief. Leave the house, Ash muttered almost inaudibly, his vision beginning to darken from exhaustion. What? Gary asked, leading him into the house. Leave it. It can always be rebuilt. Gary watched as his friend drifted off to sleep. Nighty-night, Ashy boy, he said softly. Later, Ash awoke. He opened his eyes, blinked, and opened them again. He wondered briefly why everything was so dark, but realized it was because night had fallen. He coughed, his throat feeling extraordinarily dry and painful. Pika? He heard Pikachu question from the side. He looked over and saw the electric type standing next to him, eyes drooping with tiredness but keeping a steady watch over his trainer. Pikachu? He asked, his throat burning. Pikachu! Pikachu shouted. Instantly, Gary came running. Pikachu, what's wrong? He asked urgently. Pikachu pointed at Ash. I'm just paraphrasing this. I don't always want to use their cries in dialogue. It doesn't always work, man. It doesn't always work. Gary? He asked, feeling a little dazed. It's about time you woke up, Gary said, smiling broadly. We've been out for a couple of hours and we were starting to worry again. We? Ash asked faintly. Yeah, Annabelle and Randon, he replied. Nolan, Greta, Lucy, and Tucker all just stayed long enough to satisfy themselves that you'd be okay before they went off to Viridian City. Your battle was shown on TV worldwide, you know. We all figured that since Viridian City is the closest place to the Battle Coliseum, that would be where the reporters would go. Nolan sent a message to Brandon with his mana trick about an hour ago. Well, apparently the last thing seen on TV was the Rayquaza appearing and attacking, and then the connection got cut off. From the sound of it, it's a good thing they all went to head off the reporters. Gary, Ash asked, his throat now feeling as if there were a flamethrower inside it. Could you give me a glass of water? My throat's parched. Sure thing, Ashy boy. He walked a few feet to the side and came back with a canteen full of water. Be sure to drink it slowly, cautioned. Ash took a couple of sips. The sweet liquid dribbled down his throat, cooling the burning sensation significantly. He thought it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. Thanks, he said, feeling much better. Where are we? I think we're about halfway between the Coliseum and Pallet Town, Gary answered. It normally only takes a couple of hours to walk, but we've taken much longer because we had to carry you, and because we decided to go through the forest so that we could hopefully avoid any reporters who managed to sneak out from the Coliseum. Whoa, that was a long sentence! Oh, Ash said, thinking about this long run-on sentence for a moment. Where's Annabelle and Brandon? Gary smiled in response. Annabelle tried to stay up as long as she could after looking after you, but just after Brandon got Nolan's message, she collapsed from exhaustion. We put her over by the fire and just let her sleep. When she saw you on the ground, she insisted that she'd be the one to carry you back to Pallet. Ash was glad it was dark. He had no idea why his cheeks were suddenly burning. What about Brandon? He asked. Looking for firewood. Ash tried to stand up, but his leg buckled beneath him. Where are Charizard, Glade, Totodile, and the others? Ash asked, grabbing Gary's shoulder to support himself. Look around you, Gary said, waving his hand in a wide circle. Ash looked in astonishment. Assembled in a rough circle around her were Charizard, Latias, Kingler, Glade, and Totodile, all fast asleep. What about everyone I sent out after the Frontier Breeds? They all went back to Pallet Town just before we found you. Brandon made them go, Gary said with a grin. Ash nodded and let go of Gary, thinking he could stand by himself. They're all okay, he said. His legs suddenly buckled and crashed to the ground. Ash, are you okay? Never better. Get some sleep, Ash, he said gently. You'll feel much better in the morning. He nodded and closed his eyes. In a few moments, he could sleep. Gary watched him for a moment and then turned to the fire, leaving Pikachu to the lone watch for the exhausted trainer, Pallet. Oh, hi! Hi, Spooky! Hi! How are you doing? You're the follower. I thought you were already following me, but hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? Anyway. Also, I was supposed to use the out of character thing. Gosh dang it. Also, I have to say the alert kind of startled me for a little bit. I have to be honest. It startled me a little. There's just some scrooch in here. Hi, Spooky. How are you doing? How is you? Okay, I gotta shut up. Oh, gosh. How are you doing? How are you enjoying Spooky Month? It's the most wonderful time of the year! Oh, you're playing Pokemon Legends CA, let's go. Are you enjoying that so far? Isn't it awesome? I've only played one session of it so far because I'm playing with a bunch of other people, so I'm avoiding spoilers like the plague! But man, it's a good time. Yes, I hope you are enjoying Spooky Month. Can't believe it's already halfway through it. What the heck? I still have a bunch of stuff that I need to do for Spooky Month. Like, eat candy and stuff. Boy. But yeah, so we're just reading this Pokemon fanfic Final Challenge right now, and we're like 9 chapters into it now. That was actually the end of chapter 8. We're scrolling the reading and writing day as I was reading Pokemans. Oh, yes, I was! Actually, wait a minute. So you saw I was streaming Pokemans? So you knew the story was a Pokemon story. I don't think I put this in the title. No, you're obsessed with it right now? Nice, nice, nice. Did you find any shinies yet? I gotta ask. One of the people I'm playing with, found a shiny, like, during the first session, and we all freaked out. It was kind of great. It was kind of crazy. You're scrolling and listen to some people before you stumble across the job. I see. Understandable. Have a nice day. Yes, I hope you are, but I hope you are having like a nice chill night and all that. I mean, I presume it is nighttime for you. I guess you should have said you were listening. Okay, fair enough. Understandable. I guess that makes sense. I guess I would have mentioned the Pokemon part in there somewhere. Understandable. That makes sense. Okay, you just got home, gonna eat while you listen. All right, sounds good. We do have a few. Still probably have like maybe a few more chapters to go before I plan on ending tonight. So there's there's still some time there. So I hope you enjoy your foods in the meantime. Yeah, so the story is, believe it or not, this story is old enough to vote. So, there's it's kind of a relic of the past, of my past, kind of. You're popping in, you hear Pikachu and you're like, wait, what? Yeah, indeed. So yeah, this is a Pokemon fanfic, but not just a Pokemon fanfic, it's an Advanceshipping fanfic. So do I do a lot of reading streams? I try to. It's just that over the past few months I've not been able to because of 100 Line. Which was like this visual novel that a couple of my favorite visual novel writers made, and it took me like 320 hours to beat. So yeah, so I couldn't do any of this for like the past few months. But I do enjoy doing it when I have stuff to read, and lately it's been, the stuff I've been reading has been a lot of, Advanceshipping stuff. Some of it, one of them was actually transceiver shipping too, but I actually have a fanfic that I'm actually writing right now that I do want to eventually read on stream, but it's like, it's not even halfway done. It's gonna be a while. It's like 83,000 words right now. And if I'm not even halfway done, that's like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be a stopper by the time I'm done. Ugh. Sometimes I wonder if I'm ever gonna get it finished to read it, but I'm doing my best. But in the meantime, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I've read in the past that I would like to read to people, and this is one of them. This story really did have some impact on my life a little bit, because I read it around the time when I started really getting into Advanceshipping, and it was also around the time I also got into it like shortly after like Brawl came out back in 2008. So it was like, I don't know, it just kind of takes me back to like that period of high school where it's like, simpler times. And yeah. So, I like it. Okay, but yes, but anyway, so Ash survived that fire. Yeah, like he would really die, right? There's no way they would kill him. But that said, now, that's the end of that chapter. Now it's time for chapter 9, Home. Yes, you're probably starting to notice a theming a little bit here. All the chapter names are like one word in length. Kind of like with May's Crush, actually, believe it or not. All right, now I just gotta go find the right song. Yeah, sorry, you're cutting up a cucumber. Oh my gosh, I love cucumbers. Cucumbers are great. You put salt on them? Also, I could have sworn that Sora walked into the room and started like yowling at me. Maybe I was just hallucinating. He does that a lot. He likes walking in here and meowing me and like begging for attention. Ugh. Okay. Okay, but yeah, cucumbers are great. I need to have more of them. My gosh. They're just so simple and yet so effective. So fresh. All right, anyway. Chapter 9. Home. The sunlight streamed brokenly through the trees as Ash, Pikachu, Gary, Annabelle, and Brandon made their way back to the path. Ash paused for a moment, trying to take a breath of fresh air. His throat and chest still hurt a lot, but he knew there wasn't anything that he could do about it for now. At least he could walk. It was late evening, and the four of them had already been walking for hours. Annabelle looked back at Ash, concern evident on her face. But she had seen the path through the trees ahead, and she knew that they'd be able to rest once they reached it. Who could have known that the forest would get so thick? Not much further now, Ash, she reassured him, stepping through the last of the trees and emerging on the side of a long trail that curved the forest. As Brandon and Gary emerged, she looked out over the field that stretched in front of them. The sun was just beginning to dive below the ground. It looked very pretty indeed. Ash slumped against the side of a tree, hacking hoarsely. In a few moments, he had regained his breath and looked around in surprise. I know this place, he said, eyeing a lone tree in the center of a field. This is where I tried to catch a Spearow when I first started out. Were you successful? Brandon asked. Not exactly, Ash said with a hint of a smile on his face. Pikachu wouldn't attack it, so I tried throwing a rock at it. He sighed. Was that ever a mistake? Because of that Spearow that Pikachu and I are buds now, but because of that same Spearow that I had to leave Pidgeot behind. He stood up, brushing down his jeans. Pallet Town is just over that hill, he said. We can be there in half an hour. In silence, the four of them slowly climbed the hill. Pikachu perched on his shoulder as usual. Brandon and Gary reached the top first, and paused as Annabelle helped Ash up the hill. All the smoke he had inhaled the day before was still affecting him. At last, they joined Brandon and Gary at the crest of the hill. Ash stopped and looked down at Pallet Town. A stunned expression crossed his face. He looked at Gary, hoping that it was a trick of the fading light, and saw they had tears swimming in his eyes. Professor Oak's lab was gone. Destroyed. A lightly smoking collection of debris was all that remained of the building and windmill. The forest and plains where the Pokemon stayed were charred black. The two lakes were dirty and polluted looking. It's gone, Gary whispered, his voice tight with the pain of seeing his childhood home destroyed. It's just gone. The two people from Pallet stared down in disbelief at the wreckage. I can't believe it, Ash thought. This is the place where I got Pikachu, where I started my Pokemon journey, where all my Pokemon lived until I moved into the Battle Coliseum. Realization crashed in on him. When he'd moved over to the Coliseum, all of his Pokemon at the lab had been transferred over. All save one, who had been needed to keep peace among the other inhabitants. He took off running, not caring about the pain lancing from his lungs. Ash, come back! He heard Brandon shout. He ignored him. Bulbasaur! He shouted. Bulbasaur, are you there? He ran down the hill, going faster than he could ever remember, still shouting. He heard footsteps well behind him, and knew that Brandon, Gary, and Annabelle were all following. He ran and ran until he finally reached the destroyed lab. Tears of sadness and rage clouded his face. He slowed and walked into the grounds, checking under every piece of rubble he came to for a sign of his friend. Every so often, a recognizable artifact would be discovered, jolting his stomach. He found the cover of a notebook that he recognized as being Tracy's, both pages lost. There was an aged-ripped drawing of a Pikachu and a Celebi, ruffling slightly in the breeze, one corner trapped under a charred wooden beam. Bulbasaur! He shouted, his voice echoing around the dark, ruined landscape. He waited, but there was no answering cry. Ash, Annabelle said softly, taking him by the sleeve. Ash, come on. We need to get home. No! I'm not leaving until I find Bulbasaur! He pulled back sharply, wrenching Annabelle's hand painfully. Not noticing her gasp of pain, he began to shift some more wreckage. "Let's go, Ash," Gary said, trying to drag him away. I can't leave without Bulbasaur. Don't you understand?" "I understand completely, Ash, but Bulbasaur isn't here," Gary answered. "If he was, he'd have answered you." Ash began to feel dazed as the truth of Gary's statement hit him. Either Bulbasaur had left the lab, or he shuddered. The alternative was too terrible to think about. He allowed himself to be led away from the ruins of what was once Professor Oak's lab, not really noticing where he was being taken, and only vaguely aware that it was now night. Bulbasaur, he kept thinking. Bulbasaur, where are you? "Bulbasaur!" a voice cried out. He yanked his head up. Instantly he returned to his senses. Running towards them was a Bulbasaur, but not his. He felt despair begin to crowd over him again until he recognized it by the 2 heart-shaped markings on his forehead. "May's Bulbasaur," he said in surprise. "Baba! Baba!" It nodded its head eagerly. "Please tell me," Ash pleaded. "Is my Bulbasaur okay?" "Baba!" the Bulbasaur said, nodding its head. Ash collapsed in relief. How would that Bulbasaur know if Ash's Bulbasaur was okay? Annabelle wondered aloud. "When May first came over to Kanto, she left her Bulbasaur with mine at Professor Oak's lab," Ash answered. "Bulbasaur, can you take me to my Bulbasaur?" In response, May's Bulbasaur turned and charged back the way it had come. Ash panted as he followed, a little surprised by its speed. The Bulbasaur had made a sharp turn and curled up Ash's garden, extending its vines to ring the doorbell. The door opened just as Ash, Gary, Annabelle, and Brandon reached it. "Ash! Gary!" Delia shrieked, throwing her arms around him. "Thank goodness you're both okay! We were so worried!" In moments, the doorway was crowded with people and Pokémon, all struggling to see Ash and Gary with their own eyes. Brandon tugged on Annabelle's jacket and jerked his head back towards the yard. She nodded and followed him into the darkness. Together, Delia and Mr. Mime pushed Ash and Gary into the house. Ash almost fell over when he saw just how many people and Pokémon were crowded inside the living room, including his Bulbasaur. "Bulbasaur!" Ash cried, pulling away from Delia. "Baba!" Bulbasaur responded, running towards Ash before leaping into his arms, the vine whip encircling the boy tightly in a hug. Ash looked up from his Pokémon and saw Tracy sitting in a chair, a tight grimace of pain on his face. Ash noticed that his leg was twisted at a very odd angle. Still, he smiled at Ash along with the rest. "Tracy, what happened?" Ash asked, walking up to the Pokémon watcher. Tracy just shook his head and looked around the room. "I think you'd better sit down, Ash," he said. "It's a really strange story. I wouldn't believe it myself if I hadn't been there." Ash slowly lowered himself into a chair, looking around at Delia, Brock, Misty, Max, Tracy, Dawn, Norman, Carolyn, and Professor Oak nervously. "It was the Rayquaza, Ash," Professor Oak said abruptly. He turned and looked out the window in the direction where his destroyed home lay. "When it suddenly appeared during your battle, I realized it must have crossed Pallet Town on the way because of its direction. When it started to attack, I wondered if maybe someone in Pallet had somehow angered it." "They didn't," Tracy said, They didn't, Tracy said uncharacteristically harshly. "Nearly everyone from Pallet Town had gone to the Coliseum, hoping to see you win and mark Pallet as a place of champions. I was one of the only people who stayed behind, and that was because I volunteered to look after all the Pokemon in the lab. I was watching your match on TV when I heard a roar coming from inside. It didn't sound like any of the Pokemon at the lab, so I went outside to have a look." His eyes darkened, and for a moment his hands balled into fists. "It was the Rayquaza," he said in a bitter tone. "It just flew up from the south. I couldn't believe my eyes. A legendary Pokemon in Pallet Town. It just stared down at the lab and seemed really confused. Then it saw a knot of Jumpluff and a pod of Poliwhirl by one of the lakes. It just went berserk and started firing all kinds of attacks at them. For some reason, both lakes started turning brown. I think some of the banks must have collapsed and set a bunch of dirt into them or something. Some of the Pokemon ran into the lab, but it actually attacked the building. I'd never seen anything like it. That Rayquaza absolutely destroyed the lab." He fell silent, struggling to contain his anger. "Tracy told us that Bulbasaur here was brave enough to try and fight it off," Professor Oak cut in. Unfortunately, none of its grass attacks seemed to do anything but distract his attention. Bulbasaur was lucky to get away by hiding in the forest with May's Bulbasaur. The Rayquaza just wouldn't stop attacking, Tracy broke in again. Every time it saw a Pokemon, it attacked. Most of them ran off, but I have no idea where they've gone. I've never seen a Pokemon lose control like that. But what happened to your leg? When the Pokemon ran inside the building and the Rayquaza kept trying to attack them, I went in to try and get them out into the forest so they could hide, Tracy said. The building came down right as I got to the door. I'm not sure what it was, but something hit me in the leg and broke it. If May hadn't come up on Pidgeot and let everyone to me, I'm not sure what would have happened. Both of the Bulbasaur were trying to look after me. That was when Ash realized something was wrong. Hey, where is May anyways? He asked. Where indeed? She could be anywhere, honestly. Really, she really could be anywhere. Who knows? Who knows? Come on, she couldn't have gone far. Come on, let's think about it for a sec. Okay. So that was quite a bit of stuff that happened. Oh boy. So the plot thickens a little bit, but oh boy, wait until the plot thickens even more. Oh man, that'd be great. Chapter 10, Revelation. They stood alone in the backyard, near the pond at the back of the garden. A pool of light from the windows fell on her back, illuminating her shadow on the surface of the pond. She watched silently as the Toro slept peacefully on the other side, noticing that Sceptile lay quietly in a tree a little to her right. She was sure that Noctowl, Swallow, Pidgeot, and Ambipom were up there too. She stooped and picked up a few pebbles on the ground. She slid them around her hand, allowing all but two to slide back to the earth. She lightly tossed one pebble into the water, watching it as it fell beneath the surface with a light ploop. She rolled the other pebble around her fingers, feeling its perfectly smooth, round shape. She was about to toss it into the water too, but then changed her mind, sticking it in her pocket instead. A short burst of red light, and May released her Eevee, yawning from her Pokeball. Lee? The Pokemon asked, curious why she had been called out. May bent down and scratched Eevee's head before walking to the tree and sitting down softly in the dirt at its base. Oh, it's nothing, she said quietly. It's just helpful to have somebody to talk to, or just be there, I guess. She sighed, and Eevee climbed under her lap, curling up into a little ball and looking up into May's beautiful sapphire eyes. To Eevee's surprise, they were sparkling with the first sign of tears. Really? Eevee asked. May closed her eyes and shook her head. Within the house, she heard faint conversation, and she knew that Ash was being filled in on what had happened in the lab. To Eevee's alarm, soft tears began to fall soundlessly from behind her lashes. Although May had made no sound or movement, Eevee knew that she was crying. She pawed at her trainer, and May suddenly reached down and gave Eevee a tight hug. They stayed that way for several moments until May's tears stopped flowing. She wiped her eyes on her sleeve and looked down at Eevee. She didn't know what was going on, but she was glad that she somehow been able to comfort her trainer. Thank you, Eevee, she said softly. Wait, Eevee smiled, curling into a tight ball again. May looked out over the pond for a little while, just watching the breeze ripple the water against the reeds. It was an extremely peaceful sight. Ika? Eevee looked up quickly at the noise, then turned to May, an expression of longing on her face. Go on, Eevee, she said, a sad smile, stretching. It's been ages since you played with Pikachu. I want to catch up. I'll be right here for a little while. Eevee! Eevee said with a smile, dashed over to where she'd heard Pikachu. May watched the two of them as they ran over to the other side of the yard and noticed that both the Bulbasaur had materialized and joined them. She smiled a little inwardly, although her expression remained sad. Somebody flapped down next to her. She knew who it was without even turning to look. Only one person had that little grace. The two of them looked towards the pond, although May could sense that he kept stealing sideways glances at her. They sat like that for a long time in silence. Not uncomfortable, just tranquil. Looking at the reflection in the water, May realized it was a full moon. I'm glad you're okay, May, Ash said at last. Tracy told me how you warned the others about the lab and his leg. Don't ever do that to me again, Ash, May said quietly. Do what? Ash asked, puzzled. Force me to leave in a dangerous situation. I could have helped fight off the Rayquaza. I could have helped you. Annabelle told me what happened in the house before she'd left with Brandon. If it hadn't been for your Pokemon, you would have died. How could I have known that something like that would happen? Ash asked. If I'd known that I trapped in a burning building, do you really think that I would have gone off like that? What was important to me was that all my friends were safe. I couldn't have lived if one of my friends died because I didn't protect them. Don't you understand that? May tore her gaze away from the pond and looked into Ash's auburn eyes. I understand completely, Ash, she said. I understood when Pidgeot flew me away, but don't you understand how your friends would feel if they found out that you died protecting them without them at your side? Or he might make you battle more rashly, but friendship is a strong bond. If you let your friends battle with you the way you let the Frontier Brains, the Rayquaza might have been driven off before the fire started and before your home was destroyed. Ash faltered at her logic and looked away from her eyes. He began to pick at the grass beside him. Sorry, May, he said at last. I didn't think of it that way before. I was just too, well, worried to realize that we could have fought better side by side than individually. Emotion welled up inside her. Unable to suppress it, she burst out into tears, throwing her arms around a very startled and surprised Ash. He patted her back awkwardly as she cried into his chest. He looked helplessly over at Pikachu, who was studiously ignoring the situation and determinedly trying to distract Eve. At last, May's heaving stopped. She stayed in that position for a while longer, her arms held around an increasingly uncomfortable Ash, her face buried by his now damp shirt. Honestly, you'll never make me leave like that again, she whispered. Ash, still holding her awkwardly, responded, I promise. They stayed like that for a few moments until Ash heard May begin to breathe more slowly and deeply. Realizing that she had fallen asleep, he gently unhooked her arms from around his neck and stood up, stretching his numb legs. He took a few experimental steps before turning back to May. He gently picked her up and carried her into the now dark house, Pikachu and Eevee following at a distance while the two Bulbasaur made themselves comfortable outside. Lying comfortably on a tree branch, Sceptile chuckled softly to himself, having seen and heard everything. His trainer was maturing in a way he had never had before. Wasn't that cute? Okay, sorry. I had to say something. May woke up when the sunlight played gently over her face. She sat up and realized that she was on the floor in Ash's room. A sleeping bag beneath her, not a sleeping bag. Gosh dang. What is wrong with me? She looked up at the bed and saw Dawn, still fast asleep, her long navy hair obscuring her eyes. Good morning, May, Misty greeted her. May turned and saw her at Ash's desk, looking over all of Ash's badges and plaques. Morning, Misty, May replied, standing up with a stretch. Did we all sleep in here? You don't remember coming to bed? Misty asked with surprise. May shook her head. I think someone must have carried me up, she said. Last thing I can remember, I was in the backyard looking at the pond. Where did you sleep? Did you share the bed with Dawn? No, Misty answered. Dawn claimed the bed pretty early in the day, before Ashley even got back, actually. She told me not to sleep on it tonight no matter what. I actually went to bed a lot earlier than her, but I just slept on the floor like you did. Dawn stayed up pretty late talking to Max and Brock, so I'm not surprised that she's still asleep now. A wafting scent of bacon stole into the room under the doorframe. May gave a huge sniff and smiled. Well, looks like Brock is up at least, she said with a smile. He's the only guy I know who can cook like that. With her stomach rumbling, she ran for the door, flung it open, and skidded to a halt. Sitting upright against the wall was Ash, his blue jacket folded next to him and being used as a pillow by both Pikachu and Eevee. All three were soundly asleep. May turned to Misty and pressed a finger to her lips, motioning for her to be quiet. Misty peered over May's shoulder and gave a silent giggle at the scene. The two girls quietly crept down the stairs and entered the kitchen. A scene of complete chaos met their eyes. Delia, Gary, Norman, Carolyn, Tracy, and Professor Oak were all sitting at the table, drinking tea and coffee. They were doing their level best to avoid looking at Brock and Mr. Mime, both of whom were struggling against each other for control of the kitchen. While Brock fried the bacon, Mr. Mime started on the toast. Brock chased him away, only to turn and find Mr. Mime cooking the bacon himself. Likewise, Mr. Mime was trying to brew a fresh pot of tea, but the moment he turned around, Brock poured it out and began to brew a different kind. Some things never change, Misty sighed, taking a seat at the table next to Carolyn. Morning, Misty. May, Professor Oak greeted. Morning, Professor, they chorused back. How long has this been going on for? May asked, indicating the battle between Brock and Mr. Mime as both went to serve the table first. Since Ash competed in the Orange League, Delia said with a sigh. May looked puzzled, but before she could ask any more questions, Ash didn't ask into the room. Hey guys, Ash said, stifling a yawn with his hand. Good morning, Ash, Delia said with a smile as she took a sip of her coffee. Morning, Max. Morning, Mrs. Ketchum. Mom, Dad, answered back. Has there been any more news about Rayquaza? Ash asked, noticing that the TV was on. Norman sighed. Yes and no, he said. All I know for certain is that it came from the south. Now, the ocean is only a couple hours walking distance from Pallet, so whatever it was that was attacked, it had to have come from the ocean, the Civvy Islands, Cinnabar Island, or the Orange Islands. It's possible that it came from Hoenn, but I don't think it's likely that Rayquaza would fly that far when it's injured. Injured? Max asked, raising an eyebrow. I remember thinking that I saw a burn on its arm, Ash said. I thought that it looked pretty fresh, too. The news crew picked up on the burn, too. There were reports coming in for a couple of hours before your match that Rayquaza was attacking indiscriminately, but they were all ignored for a couple of reasons. There's no proof, and Rayquaza's a legendary Pokemon. Almost nobody's ever seen one, so why would there be a sudden spurt of sightings? But then, proof arrived in an unexpected way, Professor Oak cut in. Your match was shown around the world. Everybody watching saw the Rayquaza arrive and attack. The trouble is, now that everybody is looking for the Rayquaza, it seems to have disappeared. Nobody's seen it since it destroyed the Colosseum. Ash shook his head. Where did all the attacks start? He asked. Last night, the news crew said the first report of attacks happened on Kumquat Island, Carolyn said. A cold pit suddenly materialized in Ash's stomach. He looked up and his eyes sought Brock. They stared at each other, each hoping that they were wrong. Could someone please give me a map of the Orange Islands? Ash asked, forcing himself to stay calm. Looking confused, Delia strode off to the bookcase in the living room. She quickly returned with an atlas of the Pokemon world. Ash took it from her with fumbling fingers and flipped the index, finding the page that showed all the Orange Islands. Has anybody heard anything about any other attacks in the Orange or Civvy Islands? Brock asked. There was something about a Zapdos appearing near Kino Island, but because there was no proof, some of the people investigating the Rayquaza attacks have said it was probably just a misidentified Rayquaza, Delia said. Gary snorted. It's difficult to mistake them, he said. One's yellow and has wings, the other's green and looks like a flying snake. Oh, Mr. whispered softly, looking over Ash's shoulder at the atlas. What? Kumquat Island is north of Shamudi Island, Brock said. South of Shamudi, there are 3 islands. Fire Island, Ice Island, and Lightning Island. They're the homes of Moltres, Articuno, and Zapdos. When I was in the Orange Island, something extremely bad happened, Ash said. That's an understatement, Misty muttered. Claudia suddenly ran down the stairs in a human form. She beamed at everyone, waving, but to her surprise, nobody noticed her appearance. Pokemon Collector was trying to catch a Lugia, Ash continued. To do that, he had to lure it out by capturing all 3 legendary birds. He knew that Lugia would appear because it's their guardian, for lack of a better word. I remember that too, Professor Oak said. But when he began to capture the birds, it disrupted the world's weather. This time, the Pokemon are attacking. I'm positive the bird was caused by Moltres, Ash said. I don't know of any other Pokemon that could do so much damage to a legendary. Maybe it was an Entei, Misty suggested. Gary shook his head. Entei can't cross water, Misty, he said. Whatever it was, they either lived there or flew there. A Moltres is the only thing that makes sense. But why would a Moltres just attack a Rayquaza for no reason? I asked. It doesn't make sense. Everybody fell silent for a few moments, trying to think of reasons why this would have happened. There was something else I noticed about the Rayquaza, Ash said slowly. For some reason, it was only attacking the Pokemon at first. It was only after they all disappeared behind the dust that it started to attack the actual building. Same thing happened at the lab, Macy said. It only tried to attack the building when the Pokemon ran inside and ignored me completely. The color drained from Professor Oak's face. You say that it was only attacking the Pokemon? He asked. Ash and Tracy both nodded. Did you notice anything else strange about it? Yeah. I thought it had a weird look in its eyes, Ash said, stirring up his eyes in concentration. I've seen a Rayquaza before, but never looking like that. They were kind of glinting, and it shuddered a couple of times too, but it was barely noticeable. I remember the eyes too, Tracy said. They had a cruel look in them. There was pain there too. Can't remember seeing it shudder though. What is it, Gramps? Gary asked, seeing the look on the professor's face. Do you know why the Rayquaza acted that way? I have a glimmer of an idea, but I've never heard of it affecting a Pokemon in that way before, Professor Oak said, turning away from the table. Professor Oak, please tell us what you think, Brock said. The professor turned back slowly and uttered one word. Poké-Russ. Oh boy! The plot thickens a little bit. A game mechanic a rare game mechanic making an appearance in a story? What is this? What is this? Oh boy, what is this? I can't believe it. What could it mean? Well, as much as I would love to answer that question, I think we're probably actually gonna end things up here today. You know, it's been like a little less than a couple hours, but I feel like that's a good place as any to end it. You know, it gets, you know, it's a cliffhanger kind of a little bit, gets you thinking a little about what could be going on here. But yeah, this is final challenge so far, everyone. The plots do be thickening a little bit. And it's oh boy. What have I told you? This is not even close to how crazy things are gonna get. Oh boy, oh no. Things are gonna get even crazier. And it's, oh man, I'm looking forward to this, guys. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and like, I'm glad I finally started doing this. But anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna end things off here. Okay, so let's see. Okay, okay, so Ariel is streaming 100 line right now. Gotta raid the 100 line, homies. You know, I do wonder what route she's on. I don't know. But hey, it's perfect for Spoopy month. So let's So say hi, sure, and all that. So yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I do wonder what. I'm trying to think about like what route this is. Uh, maybe it's the box. Maybe it's one of the boxes routes. I don't know, but. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, everybody. Appreciate you. I hope to see you again next time to see what happens next in Final Challenge, because oh boy, more things are gonna happen. Oh boy, just you wait. But until then, catch y'all later. Next time, actually, so I guess I'll see y'all on Wednesday for more Arceus with Thunder and the gang. So I'll see y'all then. Nice, man. It's nice to see you too. It's nice to see you too, Spooky. I'll have to see you again soon too. Hey, bye-bye now, y'all. Take care.